Shadows linger in ancient ruins. Cryptic symbols defy explanation, and vanished civilizations leave only whispers behind. Across centuries, strange events and unsolved enigmas have haunted humanity, puzzles that challenge our understanding of history, science, and even reality itself. From disappearances that remain unexplained to artifacts that shouldn't exist, these mysteries refuse to yield their truths. Tonight, we journey into the unknown, exploring stories that chill the mind and ignite the imagination. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the unsolved historical mysteries that will send shivers down your spine. Beneath the searing sun of the Sahara, where the horizon shimmers in waves of heat, lies a silence so profound it almost seems unnatural. The sand stretches endlessly, shifting with every gust of wind, concealing what has remained hidden for over 2 millennia. It is here, in the barren plains near the Siwa oasis, that history whispers of a tragedy long forgotten, or perhaps deliberately erased. The tale is of an army, once mighty, led by Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, that vanished without a trace. Records speak of 50,000 soldiers, part of Persia's grand imperial force, sent on an ambitious campaign to conquer the fabled oasis of Ammon, only to disappear into the unforgiving desert. Ancient historians, writing centuries after the fact, tell fragments of the story. Herodotus, often both our guide and our cautionary tale, describes the army's expedition as ill-fated, swallowed by the sands, the men lost to a desert that seemed to rise up against them. He writes of storms that struck without warning and of a merciless landscape that offered no sustenance or shelter. Yet beyond the chronicles, the evidence is scarce. No mass grave, no scattered weapons, no artifacts definitively linked to the lost army have been found. Only the Sahara's endless expanse, indifferent to human ambition, seems to guard its secret. Geographers and archaeologists have long debated the plausibility of such a disappearance. The desert is vast, certainly capable of overwhelming even the most disciplined troops. Shifting dunes, hidden salt flats, and sudden sandstorms could plausibly have scattered or buried an entire army. Some scholars suggest logistical errors. The army might have underestimated the distance between oases, misjudged water supplies, or failed to navigate the shifting terrain. Maps of the era were rudimentary, and even a small miscalculation in a desert without landmarks could prove fatal. Yet, if such misfortune befell them, why is there no trace at all? A force of 50,000 men, with thousands of horses and camels, should have left some mark, bones, armor, inscriptions. But the desert appears to have erased every footprint. This absence, this total erasure, has sparked questions that edge toward the mysterious. Could the army have been diverted, perhaps captured or destroyed elsewhere? Some suggest that the official accounts were exaggerated or manipulated by later Persian chroniclers, their purpose to both glorify Cambyses' reign and hide a humiliating failure. Others turn to more speculative ideas. Could a natural disaster have struck so swiftly and completely that the soldiers vanished as if the earth had swallowed them? Or did they stumble upon a landscape far more treacherous than contemporary observers imagined? Salt flats that cracked underfoot, quicksands that pulled entire caravans into the ground, or sudden sandstorms that blotted out the sun and disoriented the men? In recent decades, satellite imagery and remote sensing technologies have allowed researchers to examine the desert in unprecedented detail. Some expeditions claim to have found anomalies, rectilinear depressions that could be mass graves, or unusual soil patterns suggesting a large human presence in antiquity. But none have been conclusively linked to Cambyses' army. Even these tentative clues seem to vanish under closer scrutiny, swallowed by the Sahara's shifting surface. Each discovery raises as many questions as it answers, leaving scholars in a careful balance between excitement and skepticism. The story of the lost army also resonates beyond the purely historical. It has become a symbol of human ambition confronting nature's indifference. 50,000 men, trained and armed, marching with confidence across the sands, and yet undone by a landscape that refuses to yield its secrets. There is a haunting poetry in the thought that an army capable of conquering empires could be erased so completely, leaving only traces in written accounts, whispers of wind, and the endless, undulating dunes. As we peer across this barren expanse today, imagining the men who once traversed it, the questions linger. Did they fall to thirst and heat, their lives ending in quiet desperation? Were they scattered and absorbed into distant lands, leaving only the faintest echo of their presence? Or does the desert still conceal a tangible reminder of that fateful expedition, buried beneath layers of sand, waiting for the day someone might finally uncover it? The truth, obscured by time and circumstance, remains tantalizingly out of reach, and so the mystery endures. The lost army of Cambyses II is not merely a story of a military disaster. It is a testament to the enduring power of the unknown, a reminder that history often holds more questions than answers. As the desert stretches beyond the eye's reach, one cannot help but wonder, what other secrets lie hidden beneath its shifting sands, waiting silently for discovery? The silence of the previous mystery lingers for a moment, like dust suspended in still air before the landscape shifts. Now, the scene opens onto a windswept hill in northwestern Turkey, where layers of earth hold the memory of cities built, burned, and built again. This is Hisarlik, long believed to be the site of ancient Troy. The ground here is uneven, scarred by trenches carved more than a century ago. Beneath these cuts in the soil lies a story not only of legend and war, but of gold, and of a discovery that continues to trouble historians. In 1873, a German businessman turned amateur archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann announced that he had uncovered what he called Priam's treasure. According to Homer's Iliad, Priam was the last king of Troy, ruler of a city destroyed in the fury of the Trojan War. Schliemann believed, fervently, almost obsessively, that Homer's epic described real events. Where many scholars of his time saw myth, he saw memory waiting to be unearthed. What he revealed to the world seemed to justify that belief. The treasure consisted of thousands of objects, diadems of delicate gold, intricate earrings, silver vessels, copper shields, and chains so fine they appeared almost woven from sunlight. Photographs from the period show Schliemann's wife, Sophia, draped in the ornaments, her expression solemn beneath their weight. To Schliemann, this was proof that Homer's Troy had existed, and that he had touched the wealth of its final king. But almost immediately, questions began to form in the shadows around the gold. Schliemann's excavation methods were, even by the standards of the 19th century, destructive. He cut a deep trench through the mound, slicing past layers of later settlements in his determination to reach what he believed was Homeric Troy. In doing so, he may have destroyed crucial evidence, erasing centuries of history in pursuit of a single moment in legend. More troubling still was the dating of the treasure itself. Subsequent archaeological analysis suggested that the objects were far older than the era traditionally associated with the Trojan War, perhaps by 1,000 years or more. Instead of belonging to King Priam, the treasure may have come from an earlier Bronze Age city buried deep beneath the ruins Schliemann uncovered. If so, the name Priam's treasure would be less a fact than a romantic invention, a story imposed upon silent artifacts. Yet the mystery does not end with misidentification. Schliemann claimed he discovered the treasure in a dramatic moment, secretly removing it from the site with Sophia's help to prevent Ottoman authorities from seizing it. Later records, however, raise doubts. Some scholars suspect the discovery was staged, or at least embellished. A few even wonder whether parts of the treasure were assembled from multiple locations, arranged into a single, more spectacular narrative. Why would he do this? Was it ambition? The desire to be remembered as the man who proved Homer true? Or something more complicated, a mixture of belief and self-deception, where the boundary between discovery and dream slowly dissolved? The journey of the treasure after its discovery only deepens the sense of uncertainty. Smuggled out of the Ottoman Empire, the gold eventually found its way to Berlin, where it was displayed for decades. Then, in the chaos of World War II, it vanished. For years, its fate was unknown, lost, perhaps destroyed in the ruins of a shattered city. But history, like archaeology, has a way of revealing what is buried. In the 1990s, Russia disclosed that the treasure had been taken to Moscow by Soviet forces at the end of the war and held in secret for nearly half a century. Today, much of it resides in the Pushkin Museum, its ownership still the subject of quiet international dispute. The gold survives, yet remains displaced, claimed by competing histories. And still, deeper questions persist. If the treasure is older than Priam, whose wealth was it? What kind of city produced such refined craftsmanship so early in the Bronze Age? And what stories were lost when Schliemann's trench cut through the layers above it, stories we may never reconstruct? There is also the enduring pull of Homer's narrative. Even if the treasure predates the Trojan War, the emotional truth of the epic continues to shape how we see the site. Myth and archaeology intertwine here, each influencing the other. The gold becomes more than metal. It becomes a symbol of humanity's longing to connect legend with reality. Perhaps that is the quiet power of Priam's treasure. It reminds us that discovery is never simple. Every artifact carries not just the past it came from, but the hopes, errors, and interpretations of those who uncover it. The line between evidence and imagination can be thin, sometimes invisible, especially when the stakes include proving that one of the world's greatest stories is real. So the hill of Hisarlik remains, exposed to wind and time. Tourists walk its paths, scholars debate its layers, and somewhere beneath the questions, beneath the gold, the trenches, and the centuries of argument, lies a truth still waiting to be understood. From the golden glow of ancient treasures, our journey now shifts to the heart of Paris, beneath the soaring spires and Gothic arches of one of the world's most iconic cathedrals. Notre-Dame, with its intricate stone carvings, flying buttresses, and the weight of centuries etched into every pillar, stands as a monument to human faith and artistic ambition. Yet beneath its celebrated facade lies a world largely hidden from view, a labyrinth of forgotten tombs, silent chambers, and subterranean passages that few have ever seen. The air here, thick with the scent of damp stone and centuries of incense, carries an almost palpable sense of history pressing in from every direction. The idea of tombs beneath Notre-Dame is not merely legend. Archaeological surveys and historical records reveal that before the cathedral's construction in the 12th century, the Île de la Cité, this small island at the center of the Seine, was a site of ancient Roman settlements, medieval churches, and burial grounds. Layers of human occupation accumulate like geological strata, and over time, these layers became part of the foundation on which the cathedral itself was built. Beneath the grand nave and quiet chapels, remnants of these earlier structures endure, hidden by centuries of construction, renovation, and reconstruction. In some areas, human remains lie undisturbed, tucked away in vaults or crypts that were long forgotten as the city above evolved. The rediscovery of these subterranean spaces has been piecemeal, often accidental. Restoration efforts, structural surveys, and even the curious exploration of urban spelunkers have revealed chambers containing skeletal remains, stone sarcophagi, and fragments of medieval coffins. Many of these burials belong to priests, clerics, and notable citizens of Paris from the Middle Ages, yet some tombs resist identification entirely. Who lies in these hidden vaults? What records or markers have been lost to fire, flood, or the passage of time? As we peer into the shadows of these spaces, the absence of answers becomes as compelling as the presence of physical evidence. Historical accounts suggest that the cathedral was built deliberately over older sacred sites, including a Merovingian-era church. Scholars believe this continuity of sacred ground may have been intentional, a way to connect the new cathedral with the spiritual lineage of the city. But what else might have been preserved beneath the foundations? Could there be chambers older still? Relics of Roman temples or even prehistoric structures buried deep beneath the island's bedrock? Some researchers speculate that beneath the visible tombs may lie a network of passages and crypts yet untouched, holding artifacts, documents, or human remains that could illuminate unknown chapters of Parisian and even European history. The architecture of these hidden tombs is itself a puzzle. Narrow corridors, vaulted ceilings, and archways that echo with every footstep suggest careful planning, yet many sections appear haphazard, as if built in response to practical necessity rather than aesthetic design. Some crypts feature inscriptions or symbols whose meanings have been partially lost, while others are striking in their simplicity. A stark reminder that these spaces were meant to endure, not to impress. Occasionally, archaeologists uncover burials that hint at ritual practices no longer fully understood. Bodies placed in unusual positions, grave goods that defy standard categorization, and the deliberate layering of coffins within confined spaces suggest a culture of burial practices more complex than the historical record has preserved. In the 19th century, restoration projects led by Eugène Viollet-le-Duc brought renewed attention to Notre-Dame's underground spaces. During these works, hidden passages and vaults were uncovered, revealing the extent of the city's subterranean history. Yet even then, some tombs resisted exploration, either too fragile to access safely or concealed behind layers of stone and debris. Modern investigations continue to push boundaries, employing ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive technologies, yet each discovery seems to generate more questions than answers. How complete are the maps of these underground networks? How many burials remain concealed beneath walls and floors that have stood for centuries? And what might they reveal about the people of Paris, nobility and clergy, merchants and laborers, whose lives shaped the city above? Speculation has naturally grown around these spaces. Some historians and urban explorers wonder if the tombs contain treasures lost during centuries of upheaval, gold relics, religious artifacts, or manuscripts hidden away to protect them from plunder. Others focus less on material wealth and more on the stories that remain untold, lives interrupted by plague, war, or political unrest, and whose final resting places were swept aside by progress or forgotten in the shadows of history. The mystery is compounded by the sheer density of Paris itself, a city built layer upon layer, where the past is buried beneath streets, sewers, and foundations, waiting to be glimpsed only by those who know where to look. Yet the most compelling aspect of the forgotten tombs is their silence. These spaces resist interpretation, offering fragments of human existence without context or explanation. A skull resting in a niche, a coffin partially collapsed under centuries of soil, a carved stone whose inscription is eroded beyond recognition. Each object speaks to mortality, devotion, and the inexorable passage of time. They remind us that history is not only written in texts or legends, but also etched into the very fabric of the earth, where memory can endure long after names have been forgotten. As with Priam's treasure, there is a tension between what we know and what remains unknown. Modern technology can illuminate, document, and preserve, yet it cannot answer every question. Some tombs may never be fully explored, their contents inaccessible or too fragile to disturb. Others may lie hidden beneath modern renovations, their existence recorded only in historical footnotes or whispered in the accounts of earlier explorers. And still, the very uncertainty is part of their allure. The reminder that beneath the city's bustling streets and towering cathedrals lies a hidden world waiting for patient eyes and careful hands to uncover its secrets. The forgotten tombs beneath Notre-Dame Cathedral are more than a historical curiosity. They are a bridge to the lives, beliefs, and practices of those who lived centuries before us. They invite reflection on the impermanence of human achievement and the enduring power of memory encoded in stone, bone, and the spaces between. And as we contemplate the shadows beneath one of history's great cathedrals, we are left with a question that resonates across time. What other stories, what other mysteries lie just beyond our reach, hidden beneath the streets and structures we take for granted, waiting silently to be rediscovered? From the silent tombs beneath Notre-Dame, our journey moves deeper still into the hidden veins of Paris, into a subterranean world where stone corridors stretch for miles and shadows seem to linger in ways the light cannot reach. The Catacombs of Paris, a vast, labyrinthine network of tunnels and chambers, hold more than the remains of the city's past. They are an echo of centuries, a dark mirror of the streets above, and a place where the weight of human history presses close against the walls. Stepping into these passages is like entering a different dimension, one that blurs the line between the historical and the mysterious. The story of the catacombs begins in the late 18th century, though the tunnels themselves were carved out long before. Originally quarries, these subterranean galleries provided limestone for building the streets, churches, and monuments of Paris. Over time, they became the answer to a growing crisis. The city's cemeteries were overflowing. Decomposition, disease, and the simple limitations of space had turned certain graveyards into hazards. By 1786, authorities began transferring bones from these overcrowded sites into the tunnels, creating a vast ossuary that would eventually contain the remains of an estimated 6 to 7 million people. Skulls and femurs were carefully stacked along walls, arranged in patterns that are both eerie and oddly aesthetic. Crosses and inscriptions mark some areas, while others remain stark and anonymous, a reminder of the countless lives woven into the city's history. Walking through the catacombs, one is struck by a strange juxtaposition. On the one hand, there is meticulous order, bones organized into geometric patterns, corridors reinforced with stone, signage guiding explorers through the maze. On the other, there is a sense of the unknown. Offshoot tunnels that twist into darkness, chambers blocked by collapsed stone, passages unmarked on any modern map. Historians and archaeologists agree that large sections of the catacombs remain inaccessible, either for safety reasons or simply because they have been lost to time. How many hidden chambers lie beyond the reach of current exploration? What secrets, if any, were sealed behind walls centuries ago and forgotten? The catacombs' history is not only practical, but also deeply human. They have borne witness to Parisian life in all its extremes: revolutionary conspiracies, secret gatherings, illicit escapades, and sometimes desperate attempts to escape the city above. During periods of political upheaval, rumors tell of tunnels used to smuggle messages or conceal fugitives. In modern times, explorers, some sanctioned, many not, have ventured into uncharted sections, documenting inscriptions on walls, strange sculptures carved into the stone, and even evidence of temporary habitation. While the majority of the tunnels are catalogued, the catacombs retain a persistent aura of mystery. How much of what lies beneath has yet to be discovered? How much of the city's hidden life remains permanently obscured by darkness and stone? Despite their fame, the catacombs are as much a riddle as they are a tourist destination. Some scholars suggest that ancient Parisian rituals may have influenced the arrangement of bones, leaving patterns whose meanings we may never fully understand. Could certain chambers have held ceremonial significance? Were some tunnels deliberately constructed to conceal more than human remains, perhaps relics, archives, or items of spiritual importance? Others point to more recent urban legends, stories of hidden rooms where forbidden societies once met, or corridors that seem to extend indefinitely, resisting all attempts at mapping. While evidence is scarce, the sheer scale of the catacombs makes such possibilities difficult to dismiss outright. Scientific inquiry has brought partial clarity. Researchers have studied airflow, soil composition, and structural integrity to ensure the tunnels do not collapse, while archaeologists have examined skeletal remains to better understand Paris's population over the centuries. Bones show signs of disease, trauma, and varying age distributions, offering insight into epidemics, labor conditions, and social structures. Yet these studies answer only some questions, leaving others untouched. Why were certain remains selected for display along walls while others were stacked more anonymously? Why are some sections of the tunnels meticulously preserved, while others appear to have been abandoned or forgotten? The catacombs' allure is not purely historical. There is a psychological dimension to their mystery, a visceral sense of mortality and impermanence. Walking among the carefully arranged remains, it is impossible not to confront the fleeting nature of life and the inevitability of death. The tunnels force reflection on how societies remember, honor, or sometimes neglect those who came before. And yet, for all the solemnity, there is also the thrill of uncertainty, the possibility that just beyond the beam of a flashlight, another passage may twist into the unknown. Another chamber may hold stories or artifacts never before glimpsed. Over the centuries, the catacombs have inspired literature, film, and folklore. Tales of explorers who became lost for days, of secret gatherings that defy historical record, and even of ghostly apparitions persist alongside factual accounts. While much of this is anecdotal, it underscores the human fascination with spaces that exist outside ordinary experience. The catacombs are simultaneously real and symbolic, a reminder that beneath the city's vibrant life lies a network of histories, obscured and layered, waiting for those patient enough to listen. And yet, despite centuries of study, restoration, and popular fascination, the mystery endures. How much of the catacombs remains uncharted? Could there be chambers containing artifacts or records lost during Paris's tumultuous history, sealed by stone and time? Are there sections that have resisted exploration not because of danger alone, but because the answers they hold are intentionally hidden or simply too complex to decipher? The tunnels themselves seem to guard these secrets, their silence more eloquent than any guidebook or excavation report. The catacombs of Paris, in all their dark splendor, invite us to ponder what lies beneath the surface, not only of a city, but of human experience itself. They are a testament to memory, mortality, and mystery, a subterranean landscape where the known and the unknown coexist. As we trace their winding paths, examining bone and stone, we are reminded that even in a city as meticulously documented as Paris, there are spaces where history still whispers, where secrets persist, and where the questions remain open. What else might lie hidden beneath the streets, waiting to be discovered? The tunnels stretch onward, silent and inscrutable, offering only the invitation to explore further, to wonder, and to keep searching for what has been concealed by time itself. From the labyrinthine passages beneath Paris, our journey now moves eastward, to the quiet hills and forests of Central Europe, where a very different kind of subterranean mystery awaits. Hidden beneath villages and farmland in Germany, Austria, and the Czech Republic, the Erdstall Tunnels extend like veins beneath the earth, narrow, low, and winding. Ancient corridors whose purpose has confounded scholars, archaeologists, and explorers for centuries. Unlike the catacombs of Paris, which are vast ossuaries, or the tombs beneath Notre-Dame, which connect to the lives of a city, these tunnels seem deliberately obscure, designed for a purpose that remains tantalizingly out of reach. Stepping into an Erdstall tunnel is an exercise in humility. Most passages are only a meter high, forcing visitors to stoop, crawl, or even squeeze through tight bends. The walls are bare earth, compacted over centuries, and the ceilings low, often arched just enough to provide stability. Curiously, the tunnels rarely exceed 50 to 60 meters in length, and many are interconnected with vertical shafts or secondary passages, forming intricate networks beneath seemingly ordinary fields. There are no signs of habitation, no hearths, no pottery shards, no carvings that might indicate daily life. And yet, the workmanship is deliberate, precise, and consistent across regions separated by miles. How and why did these tunnels come to be? Archaeologists have studied the Erdstall for decades, but their origins remain elusive. Carbon dating of organic material found in some shafts suggests construction between the 10th and 14th centuries, yet no records or references exist in contemporary documents. Their purpose is debated, but conventional theories offer little certainty. Some suggest they were used as simple storage spaces or shelters during times of conflict, while others propose they served as escape routes in periods of localized unrest. The narrow dimensions and low ceilings, however, make prolonged habitation unlikely, and there is no evidence of fire pits or ventilation systems that would be necessary for long-term use. This ambiguity has led to more speculative interpretations. Could the tunnels have been designed as ritual spaces, used for secret ceremonies or meditative practices? Some explorers note that many passages include intentional dead ends, turns, and tight corners that would slow a traveler's movement. Were they constructed to disorient intruders, or perhaps to enforce introspection in those who traversed them? Theories range from the practical to the esoteric. Refuges during warfare, hidden passageways for smuggling, protective sanctuaries against evil spirits, or even conduits of a mysterious subterranean culture now lost to time. Yet no single explanation satisfies all observed patterns, leaving the tunnels suspended in a realm between archaeology and enigma. The construction techniques themselves raise additional questions. Erdstall passages are hewn directly from the soil, yet their walls are remarkably smooth, suggesting careful labor rather than haphazard digging. Corners are often sharply angled, with intersections designed to slow movement and obscure visibility. Some tunnels descend steeply into hidden chambers, while others connect horizontally in seemingly random directions. Despite their modest size, the networks demonstrate a clear understanding of structural stability and spatial design. Whoever built these tunnels possessed not only the skill to dig, but the foresight to engineer spaces that would endure centuries underground. Yet their methods and motives remain concealed. Explorers who venture into the tunnels describe a peculiar sense of disorientation. In the low, dark corridors, sound echoes strangely, and the twists and turns make it easy to lose one's bearings. Some passages lead to blind alcoves or abrupt vertical drops, as if to confound anyone following the route. There are no natural entrances beyond those constructed by the original builders, and many tunnels remain blocked or collapsed, leaving the full extent of the networks unknown. Could some Erdstall passages extend far deeper, or connect in ways we cannot yet map? Is it possible that the tunnels form part of a larger, integrated system now hidden beneath the European countryside? the human fascination with the Erdstall is as enduring as the tunnels themselves. Local folklore imbues the passages with a sense of the supernatural, describing spirits, strange noises, or inexplicable cold drafts. While such accounts cannot be verified, they reflect the impact of these spaces on human imagination. Even without ghost stories, the experience of moving through the tunnels is undeniably disquieting, a confrontation with the scale of human effort, obscured intention, and the passage of centuries. Each narrow corridor becomes a question. Why was it made this way? Who walked here? And what were they seeking that we cannot fully comprehend? Modern study offers tantalizing but partial insights. Archaeologists have cataloged hundreds of tunnels, noting patterns in their dimensions, angles, and layouts, but no definitive purpose has emerged. Some shafts contain fragments of clay, animal bones, or tools that may hint at temporary human activity, yet these are inconclusive. Others are utterly empty, silent witnesses to a forgotten past. Even sophisticated mapping technologies, including ground-penetrating radar, reveal only fragments of what might exist beneath the earth. The Erdstall refuses to yield its full secrets, offering instead glimpses and provocations that challenge the imagination. Ultimately, the mystery of the Erdstall tunnels lies not only in their origin but in the questions they provoke. Were they built as secret shelters, as ritual spaces, or as a form of medieval amusement or exercise? Did they serve a spiritual or protective function, or were they purely utilitarian? And if some sections remain undiscovered, what might they conceal? Additional passages, artifacts, or evidence that could finally explain their existence? Every tunnel explored seems to deepen the enigma, revealing the skill and intent of their creators while preserving the essential uncertainty that has surrounded them for centuries. The Erdstall tunnels, in their narrow, winding solitude, remind us that history is not always a straightforward narrative. Beneath villages, forests, and fields that seem ordinary, there exist spaces crafted with purpose, skill, and intention, spaces that challenge our understanding of the past. They are silent, enduring, and enigmatic, waiting for patient eyes to decipher their design, their function, and their secrets. And as we consider the paths of those who dug, crawled, and perhaps vanished into these tunnels, one question lingers in the mind. How much of history remains hidden beneath the ground we walk on, waiting quietly, invisibly, to be discovered? From the narrow, winding corridors of Europe's hidden tunnels, our journey now stretches across time and space to the sun-baked plains of ancient Mesopotamia, to a city that was once the jewel of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Beneath the ruins of Babylon, along the Euphrates, lies a site of silent grandeur and unanswered questions. The crypt of King Nabonidus, the last ruler of Babylon before the Persian conquest. Though history records his reign, little is known of his final resting place. What has survived through millennia is a combination of monumental architecture, fragmentary inscriptions, and an enduring sense of mystery that surrounds this enigmatic figure. The crypt itself has never been definitively located. Ancient texts suggest that Nabonidus, famed for his religious reforms and extended absence from Babylon to the Arabian oasis of Timah, was buried with the grandeur befitting a monarch. The city, adorned with towering ziggurats and sprawling temples, would have demanded a tomb reflecting his status and legacy. Excavations in the early 20th century revealed foundations and chambers that could correspond to royal burials, but the exact location of Nabonidus's final resting place remains elusive. The absence of a confirmed tomb has fueled intrigue for historians and archaeologists alike. Was it destroyed, hidden deliberately, or simply lost to the sands and floods of time? Artifacts associated with Nabonidus hint at the grandeur of his reign, yet they offer only fragmented clues. Cylinder inscriptions and temple records describe his devotion to the moon god Sin, detailing extensive restoration projects across Babylon. Such dedication suggests that his burial, too, may have been imbued with ritual and symbolism. Could the crypt itself have contained inscriptions, offerings, or sacred objects now buried beneath layers of soil awaiting discovery? Or might the tomb have been looted, either during the Persian conquest or later upheavals, erasing all evidence of its original magnificence? The architectural remains in Babylon provide tantalizing hints, but no certainties. Excavated chambers, some aligned with cardinal directions, suggest ritual significance, while others bear traces of elaborate masonry consistent with royal construction. The descriptions of Mesopotamian burial practices indicate that kings were often entombed with treasures, inscriptions, and attendants' remains, yet no chamber has definitively matched these criteria for Nabonidus. Some speculate that his absence from the city during critical periods may have influenced the design or location of his crypt. Perhaps it was constructed in secrecy, away from the ceremonial heart of Babylon. If so, the tomb might have been intentionally obscured, either to protect it from invaders or to fulfill the king's own enigmatic directives. Historical ambiguity deepens when considering Nabonidus's complex relationship with Babylonian society. Unlike his predecessors, he emphasized the worship of Sin over Marduk, the city's traditional patron deity. This deviation may have influenced the placement and design of his tomb. Could a crypt reflecting his unique devotion have been hidden deliberately from the public eye, concealed beneath temples or buried beneath structures that later crumbled or were repurposed? And if so, what secrets might it contain? Artifacts or inscriptions revealing aspects of his reign otherwise unrecorded, or evidence of religious practices lost to history? Excavations of Babylon have uncovered burial chambers that challenge interpretation. Some rooms contain skeletal remains alongside ritual objects, while others are entirely empty, perhaps looted or destroyed. The crypt of Nabonidus, if it exists, would likely conform to a pattern of secrecy and ritual precision, making it difficult to locate even with modern archaeological techniques. Ground surveys, remote sensing, and careful stratigraphic analysis have mapped potential candidates, yet none have produced definitive evidence. The very incompleteness of the archaeological record contributes to the sense of mystery. The crypt may lie beneath layers of urban construction, submerged by shifting soils, or hidden beneath structures erected centuries after the king's death. Speculative theories abound, though none can be verified. Some suggest that Nabonidus's crypt may have been moved or reconstructed in a different city, reflecting his extended absence from Babylon. Others hypothesize that it may never have been completed, abandoned due to political instability or the impending Persian conquest. There are even whispers in historical circles that he may have been interred in a manner designed to symbolize his devotion to Sin, a burial site aligned with lunar cycles, concealed in a location inaccessible to casual discovery. While such theories cannot be confirmed, they reflect the ways in which historical gaps invite interpretation and wonder. The enigma of Nabonidus's final resting place also reflects a broader truth about history, that memory is fragile, and the past is often preserved only in fragments. Even the most powerful kings, whose reigns shaped empires, can disappear from the tangible record, leaving only inscriptions, scattered artifacts, and the persistent curiosity of those who follow in their footsteps. The crypt, hidden beneath centuries of earth and ruin, stands as a metaphor for the gaps in our knowledge, reminders that every discovery illuminates some truths while leaving others in shadow. And yet, the search continues. Each excavation, each careful study of Babylon's ruins, offers potential clues, but the crypt of King Nabonidus remains elusive. Could it lie beneath the foundations of modern constructions? Has it been destroyed by natural forces or human intervention over millennia? Or does it remain hidden, waiting for the day that patient inquiry, methodical archaeology, or sheer chance might reveal what history has so carefully concealed. The mystery of the crypt of King Nabonidus endures not merely because of the king himself, but because it embodies the tension between what we know and what remains beyond reach. It invites reflection on the impermanence of human power, the limits of historical record, and the thrill of discovery in spaces that remain largely unseen. As we peer across the ruins of Babylon, tracing the outlines of temples, palaces, and chambers, one cannot help but wonder, what other secrets of the Neo-Babylonian Empire lie hidden beneath the sands, awaiting those patient enough to uncover them? From the ruins of Babylon and the elusive crypt of King Nabonidus, our journey turns southward, across deserts and along the winding Nile, to the land of the Pharaohs, ancient Egypt, where monuments rise from golden sands and every stone seems to hum with the echoes of millennia. Among the pyramids, temples, and tombs that have captured the world's imagination, there are burial sites whose stories remain frustratingly incomplete, whose occupants are known only in fragmentary inscriptions or whispers in historical texts. One such enigma is the forgotten tomb of a pharaoh's high priest, a figure of immense influence whose final resting place has been lost to time. The high priest held a unique position in Egyptian society, tasked with performing sacred rituals, interpreting omens, and overseeing the cult of powerful deities. He wielded authority second only to the pharaoh himself. His role connected the mortal world with the divine, a conduit between the living and the eternal. Tombs of such figures were typically constructed with care, designed to endure as sanctuaries for both body and soul. Yet in this case, the precise location of the high priest's tomb has eluded archaeologists, leaving behind only tantalizing clues, scattered inscriptions, ceremonial artifacts, and occasional references in temple records that hint at a burial of extraordinary significance. Vivid descriptions of the tomb, recorded in fragments by early explorers, suggest a chamber carved deep into the bedrock, its walls adorned with reliefs of gods and mortals intertwined in eternal ritual. The corridors were reportedly narrow and winding, perhaps designed to protect sacred contents or to disorient potential intruders. Some accounts mention hidden niches and small chambers branching off the main passageways, their purpose uncertain, storage, ritual, or symbolic pathways meant to guide the soul on its journey to the afterlife. These details, though fragmentary, evoke a sense of deliberate mystery, as if the tomb itself were meant to shield its occupant from both human curiosity and the ravages of time. Archaeologists have pieced together potential locations through surveys near known temples and royal complexes, yet the tomb has resisted definitive discovery. Many hypothesize that it lies in a less prominent necropolis, overshadowed by the grander tombs of pharaohs, perhaps intentionally concealed to protect the high priest's treasures, records, or sacred artifacts. Could it be buried beneath layers of later construction, hidden by sand and rubble, or destroyed in antiquity by natural events or human intervention? The absence of direct evidence only deepens the allure, leaving open the question of how much of Egypt's spiritual and political history remains concealed beneath its shifting sands. The artifacts linked to the high priest offer further intrigue. Ceremonial scepters, inscribed stelae, and fragments of gilded jewelry suggest an individual of great importance, yet the majority of these objects have been found far from the tomb itself. Were they relocated, looted, or dispersed during periods of political upheaval? Some fragments hint at religious practices not widely documented, suggesting that the high priest may have been involved in rituals now lost to history. Could the tomb contain texts, offerings, or iconography that would illuminate aspects of Egyptian religion otherwise obscured? Or does it remain deliberately inaccessible, a hidden repository of sacred knowledge intended to endure only in secrecy? The design of Egyptian tombs often blends practicality with symbolism, and the high priest's tomb would have been no exception. Narrow corridors, concealed chambers, and complex layouts may have served multiple purposes: protection of the body, preservation of ritual objects, and reflection of cosmological principles. Scholars note that many tombs from this period were oriented according to celestial alignments, reinforcing the connection between earthly burial and divine journey. Could the high priest's tomb have incorporated elements that were experimental, personal, or unique to his position? And if so, what might these architectural choices reveal about the interplay of religious authority and personal legacy in ancient Egypt? Speculation naturally extends beyond the known artifacts and inscriptions. Some suggest that the tomb could contain texts or relics suppressed or lost during later dynastic reforms, objects deliberately hidden to protect them from political or religious censorship. Others consider the possibility of ceremonial items intended to guide the high priest in the afterlife, objects whose materials or construction defy modern understanding. While such theories cannot be confirmed, they underscore the sense that the tomb represents more than a physical resting place. It is a key to a narrative that remains incomplete, a puzzle entwined with both history and ritual imagination. Modern technology has expanded the search for the tomb. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, and careful excavation have identified potential subterranean chambers near known temple complexes and burial grounds. Yet the high priest's tomb has remained elusive, evading both rigorous scientific inquiry and adventurous exploration. Some chambers discovered in nearby necropolises bear structural similarities to descriptions of the tomb, yet no artifacts or inscriptions have definitively confirmed the identity of the occupant. The gaps in knowledge reinforce the sense of mystery, leaving the high priest's final resting place suspended between history, legend, and conjecture. And so the tomb endures as a question, a silent monument whose location, contents, and full significance remain unknown. It reminds us that even in a civilization as well studied as ancient Egypt, entire chapters of human experience can vanish from the historical record, leaving only fragments and possibilities. Who walks these corridors in the imagination of the historian? What treasures, texts, or sacred objects lie waiting beneath centuries of sand, stone, and neglect? The forgotten tomb of the Pharaoh's high priest, like the crypt of King Nabonidus or the Erdstall Tunnels, embodies the tension between human ambition and the impermanence of memory. It invites reflection on the passage of time, the fragility of records, and the ways in which powerful individuals may be erased from the physical landscape, even as their influence lingers in texts, artifacts, and collective imagination. And as we trace the shadows of these ancient corridors, one question persists. What else, hidden beneath the sands of Egypt, waits silently for discovery, its secrets preserved only in patience, inquiry, and the enduring wonder of history itself? From the shadowed tombs of Egypt, where devotion and secrecy intertwine, we now journey north to the heart of the Roman Empire, to the city of Rome itself, a place of marble monuments, bustling forums, and whispered intrigues. It is here, amidst the grandeur of palaces and temples, that the life of one emperor continues to fascinate and confound. Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, better known to history as Caligula. His reign was brief, lasting only from 37 to 41 CE, yet his name endures, evoking images of extravagance, cruelty, and incomprehensible decisions. And yet, behind the legends and sensational accounts, there lies a story far more enigmatic, a life whose motivations, contradictions, and mysteries remain unresolved. The young Gaius grew up under the shadow of power and peril. As a child of the imperial household, he witnessed both the glory and the ruthlessness of Roman political life. His father, Germanicus, was adored by the legions, while his mother and siblings endured exile, imprisonment, and death. These formative years, surrounded by intrigue and threat, shaped the man who would become emperor. But in what ways? Historians debate how much of Caligula's later behavior was a product of innate temperament, childhood trauma, or political necessity. Were the infamous acts attributed to him the result of madness, cunning, or careful strategy? The sources, Suetonius, Cassius Dio, and later chroniclers, paint wildly inconsistent portraits, leaving the truth obscured beneath layers of exaggeration and rumor. Rome itself was the stage for Caligula's enigmatic rule. Palaces rose along the Palatine Hill, aqueducts and temples expanded the city's splendor, and yet the streets were rife with tension. His public actions, at once generous and terrifying, perplexed senators, citizens, and even the Praetorian Guard. Accounts describe lavish games, massive expenditures, and displays of wealth meant to awe the populace. Yet alongside these gestures were tales of cruelty, executions on whims, punitive fines, and bizarre commands that challenged the very structure of governance. Could such contradictions reflect deliberate political theater, a ruler projecting power through unpredictability? Or were they the signs of a mind at odds with itself, a ruler whose motives remain forever opaque? The architecture of his reign mirrors the complexity of the man. Temples were dedicated, statues erected, and public works initiated, yet many were left incomplete or altered after his death. Archaeologists note inscriptions and monuments bearing his name that were later defaced, erased, or repurposed. Artifacts of memory manipulated by successors to shape the narrative of history. What did Caligula hope to leave behind? And how much of what survives is filtered through the lens of those who sought to vilify or exaggerate him? These tangible remnants offer tantalizing clues, yet they cannot fully reconstruct the personality behind the legend. Some of the most enduring mysteries concern his personal rituals and beliefs. Sources suggest he claimed divinity, associating himself with gods such as Jupiter and Apollo, and demanding recognition as a living deity. Yet it is unclear whether this was political theater, personal conviction, or a strategy to consolidate authority in a city still revering the pantheon. Did he genuinely see himself as divine? Or was it an elaborate form of psychological warfare over Rome's elite? Similarly, stories of bizarre behaviors, ordering armies to collect seashells, for instance, or constructing temporary floating bridges, might reflect practical exercises misinterpreted, symbolic acts misunderstood, or exaggerations amplified over centuries. How much of what we believe about Caligula is fact, and how much is myth, shaped by surviving chroniclers eager to shock and entertain? Even the circumstances of his death are shrouded in mystery. Caligula was assassinated after only 4 years on the throne, a victim of palace conspiracy, yet the motives, planning, and participants remain only partially understood. Was his murder the inevitable result of tyranny, a preemptive act by those fearing further chaos, or part of a more complex interplay of political intrigue that modern historians can only speculate about? And what became of his personal treasures, writings, and private correspondences, objects that might have offered insight into his intentions, beliefs, or state of mind? The trail has long been lost, swallowed by the passage of time and the upheavals that followed his death. In Rome, one can still walk along streets that echo with the power struggles of emperors and senators. The ruins of the Palatine, the remains of temples, and fragments of inscriptions are silent witnesses to lives once lived in excess, fear, and ambition. Caligula's life is preserved only in fragments of record, physical remnants, and the imagination of those who try to piece together the story. In these shadows, one is forced to confront the limits of historical knowledge. Even figures who dominate their own era can slip through the cracks of certainty, leaving only tantalizing traces. The fascination with Caligula endures because of this tension between myth and reality. He embodies the paradox of historical memory, a ruler whose fame arises not solely from deeds, but from the contradictions, rumors, and uncertainties that surround him. Was he mad, brilliant, cruel, or visionary? The evidence is compelling and inconclusive in equal measure. It invites contemplation, not answers, challenging us to navigate the space between what is recorded and what might have been. And so, the mystery of Caligula's life persists. He remains a figure both vividly remembered and perpetually unknowable, a man whose influence shaped Rome, yet whose inner world eludes definitive understanding. As we wander through the remnants of his city, tracing the contours of palaces, temples, and forums, one cannot help but wonder. What truths about Caligula's reign, his psyche, and his ambitions remain buried beneath centuries of rumor and interpretation? What stories might yet emerge from fragments overlooked, inscriptions misread, or records lost to the ravages of time? In the end, the emperor's life continues to challenge us, reminding us that history often leaves the most intriguing mysteries unresolved.
From the silent guardians of the Nile, where Canopic jars preserve the legacy of ritual and belief, our journey now shifts eastward across oceans to the lush volcanic landscapes of Bali. Here, along the steep banks of the Pakarasan River, rise the Gunung Kawi rock shrines, monolithic tombs carved directly into cliff faces, their surfaces etched with niches, reliefs, and inscriptions that have survived centuries of monsoon rains, earthquakes, and human passage. The shrines emerge from the jungle like sentinels of memory, their precise origins and purpose cloaked in the mist of time, inviting contemplation and quiet awe. The shrines themselves are striking in their scale and execution. Carved into volcanic tough cliffs, some reach 10 meters in height, their facades interrupted by carefully hewn stairways, recessed chambers, and geometric niches. The surfaces bear traces of intricate ornamentation, suggesting that they were once more elaborate, adorned with reliefs, statues, and perhaps painted surfaces now eroded by wind and rain. Approaching the cliff, one is struck by the sheer audacity of their construction. How could artisans of the 11th century or perhaps earlier create such precise and monumental works on vertical rock faces with only basic tools and ingenuity? The answer remains elusive, leaving the shrines as both historical artifacts and enduring enigmas. Historical records attribute the shrines to Balinese royalty, likely built as funerary monuments for kings, queens, and high-ranking officials of the Udayana dynasty. The inscriptions, though partially eroded, suggest ritual significance and reference ceremonies designed to honor the deceased and facilitate their journey to the afterlife. Yet, even these records leave questions unanswered. Were these tombs reserved exclusively for royalty, or did they serve broader spiritual purposes? Were the shrines constructed as part of a dynastic program, a series of commemorative acts, or did they reflect localized traditions now lost to history? The ambiguity persists, and it is here that the mystery deepens. Archaeological study reveals both sophistication and intentionality in their design. The niches are carefully proportioned, the stairways calculated to allow access to multiple levels, and the alignment of the shrines appears to follow the contours of the river valley, perhaps in symbolic relation to the flow of life and death. Some scholars suggest that their placement beside the Pakarasan River was deliberate, linking water with ritual purification, cosmic order, or ancestral connection. Could the river have been a conduit for spiritual energy, guiding the souls of the deceased toward a metaphysical horizon? The combination of natural and human-engineered elements hints at a worldview where geography, ritual, and belief converge. Yet the shrines also inspire speculation. The precision of carving, the choice of volcanic tuff, and the seemingly unbroken vertical facades have led some to wonder whether techniques now lost were employed. Were simple tools alone sufficient to achieve this scale, or did the builders possess methods or knowledge now forgotten? Local folklore enriches the narrative, attributing supernatural guidance to the artisans, suggesting that the shrines were shaped under divine supervision or inspired by sacred visions. While such interpretations cannot be verified, they reflect a long-standing recognition of the shrine's extraordinary craftsmanship and spiritual resonance. Inside and around the shrines, further enigmas emerge. Smaller niches and recessed chambers suggest ritual function beyond mere tomb construction. Offerings, ceremonies, or symbolic guardianship may have been integral to the site's use. Yet, much of this evidence is subtle, eroded, or absent, leaving archaeologists to infer meaning from the architecture itself. Could the shrines have been part of a larger ceremonial complex, one whose other elements, temples, altars, or residences, have vanished or remain undiscovered beneath jungle growth and centuries of human activity? The incompleteness of the record ensures that the shrines continue to challenge conventional understanding. The cultural context offers both clarity and mystery. Balinese society in the 11th century was deeply intertwined with Hindu ritual, ancestor veneration, and dynastic authority. The shrines reflect these themes, yet the scale and placement suggest additional layers of significance, perhaps linked to cosmology, power, or political symbolism. How did these monuments function within daily life, ceremony, or governance? Were they meant to communicate authority, spiritual potency, or ancestral continuity? Or did they serve as a tangible interface between the material and the divine, a stage upon which the living and the dead could coexist symbolically?
Even today, the shrines retain a sense of quiet power. Visiting the site, one is struck not only by the skill of the artisans, but by the interplay of stone, river, and jungle. Sunlight shifts across the cliff face throughout the day, casting shadows into the niches, illuminating features that might otherwise remain hidden. Mist rises from the river below, softening the rock and giving the entire complex a sense of impermanence, as if the shrines exist simultaneously in the present and in memory. In this interplay, the Gunung Kawi shrines remind us that history is not static, and that each monument carries both certainty and enigma. Ultimately, the Gunung Kawi rock shrines endure as a meditation on creativity, devotion, and the passage of time. They are evidence of human ingenuity, reverence for the dead, and spiritual imagination, yet they also pose questions that may never be fully answered. How were they constructed with such precision and scale? What rituals, beliefs, or knowledge are encoded within their walls and niches? And how much of their story, lost to erosion, neglect, or the centuries, remains hidden beneath the surface, waiting for patient eyes to uncover it? The shrines stand in silence, monumental yet intimate, blending human effort with natural grandeur. They are both a record and a riddle, a testament to Bali's history, and a reminder that some mysteries survive not in written words, but in stone, shadow, and space. As we contemplate their form, their placement, and the hands that shaped them, we are left with a question that lingers in the mind long after leaving the site. What else remains hidden in these cliffs, in the rituals, and in the imagination of a people whose presence echoes through time? From the fragile pages of the Dresden Codex, where ancient Maya knowledge survives against the odds, our journey returns once more to the sun-scorched landscapes of Egypt, where stone monuments rise timelessly from the desert. Here, amidst tombs, temples, and burial chambers, we encounter objects that speak quietly but profoundly of a civilization obsessed with life, death, and what comes after. Among the most enigmatic of these are the Canopic jars, containers designed not merely as vessels, but as guardians of the deceased, protectors of the body's most vital organs, and conduits between mortality and eternity. A typical set of Canopic jars consists of 4 containers, each meticulously crafted from alabaster, calcite, pottery, or stone, their lids carved in the likeness of the 4 sons of Horus: Imseti, Hapi, Duamutef, and Kebesenuef. Each jar held a specific organ, the liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines, removed during mummification, carefully treated, and placed under the protection of these deities. The craftsmanship is remarkable, ranging from austere elegance to intricate decoration, with hieroglyphic inscriptions invoking divine protection and spells to preserve the deceased in the afterlife. Yet, for all their apparent clarity of purpose, these jars also conceal questions that have puzzled historians for centuries. Why were these particular organs chosen for preservation, while others were left in the body? Was it purely practical, tied to ritualistic beliefs about the soul's journey, or symbolic of something deeper in the Egyptian understanding of the human condition? Each jar, though small, embodies a confluence of spiritual, medical, and cosmological thought. Inscriptions and iconography suggest that the Egyptians viewed the body as a vessel not only for life, but for the continuity of the soul. These jars were instruments of protection, ensuring that the deceased could navigate the complex passage to the afterlife. And yet the reasoning behind certain ritual details remains elusive, suggesting that even the most meticulously preserved practices were infused with secrecy, known only to the priests and mummifiers. The jars themselves have inspired fascination far beyond their practical function. Some sets are carved with extraordinary precision, the stone polished to a luminous sheen, lids formed in the likeness of human, baboon, jackal, or falcon heads. Scholars note that the choice of animal or human visage may carry layers of meaning, symbolic associations with deities, moral qualities, or cosmic functions. But why were certain heads assigned to specific organs? And how did regional or temporal variations influence the form and decoration of these containers? The answers are only partially understood, leaving the jars suspended between ritual, art, and enigma. Evidence from tombs, including those of pharaohs, nobles, and high priests, reveals that canopic jars were not merely functional. Some appear to have been placed in elaborate nested boxes, others alongside amulets, scrolls, or miniature statues. Could these arrangements have additional layers of symbolic protection, ensuring that the soul encountered multiple safeguards on its journey? Archaeologists also find that the jars were sometimes hidden, covered, or removed from tombs over centuries, whether by looters, later religious reforms, or natural decay, further complicating our understanding of their original use and significance. Beyond their physical presence, the jars provoke questions about the Egyptian worldview. Their design reflects a belief in the continuity of life after death, where preservation of the physical body was inseparable from spiritual survival. The inscriptions invoke spells from the pyramid texts or the Book of the Dead, reinforcing the link between ritual practice and cosmological order. Yet even as we can translate the texts, there is a lingering mystery. Did the priests who performed these rituals understand them solely as practical procedures for spiritual protection, or as expressions of a deeper philosophical understanding of existence itself? Could the jars also encode knowledge lost to time, medical, mystical, or astronomical, that modern interpretation has only begun to touch? Some modern theorists speculate that certain canopic jars may have contained additional items or substances beyond what is documented. Oils, herbs, or even symbolic essences intended to aid resurrection. While evidence is scant, the notion raises intriguing possibilities about the sophistication of Egyptian ritual practice. How much of the knowledge embedded in these jars has been irretrievably lost? Could subtle variations in design, material, or inscription point to practices that are entirely undocumented, revealing aspects of the priestly knowledge or local traditions yet to be understood? The jars' enduring power lies in the quiet authority of their presence. Even when removed from their original tombs and displayed in museums, they convey a sense of deliberate purpose, of reverence for life, death, and the forces that govern both. They invite contemplation on mortality, ritual, and the human desire to control or safeguard the journey beyond the visible world. And in their preservation, we encounter both certainty and ambiguity. A civilization's meticulous care that nonetheless leaves questions unanswered, stories incomplete, and knowledge tantalizingly just out of reach. In the end, the Canopic jars are more than containers. They are symbols of a civilization's negotiation with eternity. They speak to the care with which the Egyptians approached death, the ingenuity of their artistry, and the depth of their spiritual imagination. Yet they also challenge us. How much of the knowledge encoded in these jars remains unknown? What further insights into Egyptian medicine, ritual, or cosmology might still be hidden within their forms or inscriptions? And how many other practices, now lost to the sands of time, existed alongside these jars, invisible yet integral to the civilization that created them? The Egyptian Canopic jars endure as silent witnesses to a culture both extraordinarily meticulous and profoundly mysterious. Each lid, each inscription, each choice of material embodies layers of meaning we may never fully unravel. And as we study them, turn them in our hands, and consider the hands that shaped them thousands of years ago, we are reminded that history is as much about questions as answers, and that some mysteries, like those preserved in these jars, continue to invite wonder, reflection, and careful exploration. The desert night above southern Iraq unfolds with a silence that feels almost deliberate, as though the sky itself is holding its breath. Far from the glow of modern cities, the stars appear sharp and innumerable, scattered across the darkness in patterns that have remained unchanged for thousands of years. Beneath this same sky, the ancient cities of Sumer once stood, Uruk, Ur, Eridu, places where some of humanity's earliest writing, mathematics, and astronomy first took shape. Clay tablets, pressed with wedge-shaped cuneiform marks, still rest in museum collections today. And among records of grain, trade, and kingship, there are also careful notations of the heavens. At first glance, these tablets seem practical rather than mysterious. The Sumerians depended on the sky for survival, seasonal flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates, the timing of planting and harvest, and the rhythms of ritual life were all guided by celestial observation. Priests watched the movements of stars and planets with disciplined attention, recording risings, settings, and unusual events. Over generations, this vigilance became systematized knowledge. Early star catalogs, constellations, and omens tied to planetary motion. Scholars today point to texts such as the MUL.APIN series, compiled later in Mesopotamian history, but rooted in earlier Sumerian traditions. These tablets map the sky into ordered paths, track the appearances of constellations, and even describe methods for predicting celestial cycles. To modern historians of science, they represent one of the first structured attempts to understand the cosmos through observation and pattern. In this sense, the so-called star maps are less mysterious than monumental, evidence of careful thinking in a world long before telescopes. And yet, certain details invite lingering curiosity. Some tablets depict star groupings that do not perfectly match later Babylonian or Greek constellations. Others appear to encode numerical relationships whose meanings remain debated. A few fragments have been interpreted, controversially, as representing unusual celestial events, comets, supernovae, or planetary alignments that would have been rare and striking to ancient observers. Were these simply poetic descriptions, filtered through religious symbolism? Or could they be records of real phenomena that modern astronomy is only now attempting to correlate? The boundary between astronomy and divination in Sumer was never clear. The heavens were not merely physical, they were communicative. Each movement of Venus or eclipse of the moon could signify favor, warning, or transformation. Kings consulted sky readers before making decisions of war or diplomacy. In this worldview, mapping the stars was also a way of mapping destiny. From a modern scientific perspective, this fusion of observation and omen is understandable. Without instruments to separate measurable data from interpretation, meaning naturally filled the gaps. Still, the precision of some measurements, particularly planetary cycles, suggests a depth of observation that feels surprisingly advanced. How did early observers, working only with the naked eye, achieve such consistency across centuries? Was it simply patience, tradition, and cumulative record-keeping? Or does the sophistication hint at lost methods we no longer fully grasp? These questions have drawn attention beyond conventional scholarship. In more speculative circles, Sumerian star maps are sometimes described as evidence of forgotten knowledge, or even contact with intelligences beyond Earth. Interpretations of certain symbols as spacecraft trajectories or extraterrestrial constellations circulate widely in popular media. Mainstream historians reject these claims, noting that symbolic language and mythological imagery are easily misunderstood when removed from cultural context. Yet the persistence of such theories reveals something deeper. A sense that the earliest chapters of human civilization may still conceal untold stories, even without invoking the extraordinary genuine mysteries remain. Many tablets are damaged or incomplete, their meanings permanently obscured. Linguistic nuances of Sumerian, one of the world's oldest written languages, continue to challenge translation. Astronomical references may hide within metaphors we no longer recognize. Each new excavation in Mesopotamia has the potential to reshape what we think we know about ancient science. There is also the question of continuity. Knowledge recorded in Sumer did not vanish. It flowed into Babylonian, Assyrian, Greek, and eventually modern astronomical traditions. When we look at contemporary star charts, we are, indirectly, seeing echoes of those first careful observations made beside riverbanks thousands of years ago. The night sky has not changed, but our interpretations of it continually evolve. Standing beneath that same canopy of stars today, it becomes difficult to separate past from present. The constellations that guided Sumerian priests still guide satellites and telescopes. The impulse to search the heavens for meaning remains unchanged. We continue to map, measure, and question, just as they did. But one uncertainty lingers quietly at the edge of the record. Were the Sumerian star maps simply the beginning of astronomy as we understand it? A remarkable but natural step in humanity's intellectual growth? Or do the fragments hint at layers of knowledge, observation, or experience that we have not yet fully recovered? The clay tablets endure, silent and patient, waiting for interpretations that may still be centuries away. And as the desert sky turns slowly overhead, unchanged since the dawn of writing, the same question that faced the watchers of Sumer remains suspended in the darkness above us. When we look into the stars, are we only seeing distant lights, or traces of a story that has yet to be completely told? Perhaps the deepest mystery lies not in the tablets, but in the quiet curiosity behind them. Civilizations changed, languages faded, yet the urge to understand the sky endured. What drew Sumerian watchers to trace those distant lights night after night? survival, belief, or simple wonder. In those fragile marks of clay, the first echoes of a question still linger as the ancient sky continues to hold answers just beyond our sight. From the highlands of Colombia, where monumental stone sculptures silently guard the memory of an ancient civilization, our journey now returns to the Mediterranean world, to the sun-baked plains of Algeria. Here, among rolling hills and arid valleys, lie the ruins of Timgad, once a thriving Roman city, now a ghostly testament to urban planning, ambition, and the passage of time. As one approaches the site, the remains of stone streets, arches, and temples rise from the dust, aligned with meticulous precision, evoking both awe at Roman engineering and a haunting sense of absence, as though the city's life has been suspended in the folds of history. Timgad was founded in the early 1st century CE by the Emperor Trajan as a military colony and a hub for Romanization in North Africa. Its design is remarkably orderly. A classic Roman grid plan stretches across the plain, with broad streets intersecting at right angles, leading to a central forum, temples, theaters, and baths. The city was a marvel of engineering and civic organization, with aqueducts bringing water to fountains and private homes, while public buildings and monuments reflected imperial power and Roman ideals of architecture and culture. Even in ruins, the precision of the urban layout is striking, prompting the question, what visions, ambitions, and human energies shaped this city, and why did its flourishing life vanish so completely? Archaeologists have meticulously uncovered the remains of Timgad's streets and structures, yet much about daily life remains a mystery. Houses of varying sizes suggest a stratified society, from well-appointed domus of the elite to modest dwellings of ordinary residents. Public spaces indicate vibrant social, religious, and commercial activity, while inscriptions hint at local governance, trade networks, and civic rituals. Yet, as we reconstruct the city's life from stone and debris, gaps emerge. What did the inhabitants truly believe? How did they experience the intersection of Roman authority and local culture? And how much of the city's story has been erased by conquest, neglect, and the slow erosion of time? The ruins of Timgad are remarkable not only for their scale, but for their preservation. Unlike many Roman cities lost beneath the sands or buried under modern towns, Timgad retains the imprint of its original grid, allowing us to trace streets and public spaces with near-complete clarity. The triumphal arch, standing sentinel over the main thoroughfare, evokes ceremonies of imperial entry and civic pride, yet it now frames empty streets and silent squares. Who walked beneath this arch centuries ago, and what did they see, feel, or imagine as they moved through the city? The juxtaposition of precision and abandonment transforms the ruins into a silent narrative, inviting both admiration and speculation. The forum and public buildings offer further enigmas. Temples dedicated to Roman gods, a basilica, and a theater hint at ritual, civic, and cultural life, yet few inscriptions or artifacts survive to explain the full scope of activity. Some archaeologists have suggested that Timgad's layout reflects broader philosophical and cosmological principles, with cardinal alignments, proportional measurements, and symbolic placements designed to harmonize the urban space with imperial and cosmic order. Was this merely aesthetic and practical, or did the planners intend to embed a deeper layer of meaning into the city's very geometry? And if so, what has been lost in translation over the centuries? One of the most compelling mysteries involves the city's decline. Historical records suggest that Timgad was partially abandoned following the Vandal invasions of the 5th century and later suffered earthquakes and Arab conquests. Yet the speed and completeness of its decline remain puzzling. How did such a meticulously planned and vibrant city fall silent, its streets emptied, fountains dried, and buildings crumbling? Were there social, economic or environmental factors that contributed to its abandonment beyond military and political upheavals? And what traces of its inhabitants' resilience, adaptation, or memory remain beneath the ruins? Artifacts recovered from the site hint at daily life, belief, and trade, yet they also deepen the mystery. Pottery fragments, coins, and inscriptions suggest connections with other Roman provinces, but the cultural blending of indigenous, Roman, and North African influences is difficult to quantify. Did residents retain local traditions alongside Roman practices, or was Roman culture imposed and assimilated? How did people navigate identity, loyalty, and belief in a city designed to project imperial authority, yet populated by a diverse populace? These questions underscore the complexity of interpreting a site that is simultaneously well documented in its structure and elusive in its lived reality. Timgad also raises questions about memory and preservation. Unlike cities buried and lost, Timgad's ruins lie exposed to the elements, its survival owed to a combination of geography and neglect. As centuries passed, the stones were stripped for other constructions, the streets were slowly reclaimed by nature, and the human memory of daily life faded. Yet the city endures as both evidence and enigma, a monument to human ambition, ingenuity, and impermanence. What secrets remain hidden beneath its stones, unexcavated or overlooked? How much more could the city tell us about the interplay of power, culture, and human aspiration if we could recover it fully? Walking through Timgad today, the experience is immersive and contemplative. One can trace the main Cardo and Decumanus, step into the shadow of the theater, and imagine the daily rhythms of life. Merchants in the forum, citizens attending ceremonies, children playing along the streets. And yet, the emptiness of these spaces is profound. The city is alive in imagination but silent in fact, inviting reflection on the passage of time, the impermanence of human constructs, and the delicate balance between preservation and decay. Ultimately, the ruins of Timgad endure as a meditation on ambition, planning, and mystery. They are a testament to the skill and vision of Roman architects, the aspirations of a provincial city, and the enduring questions left by civilizations that rise and fall. How did the people of Timgad experience their world, and how did they navigate the tension between imperial power and local life? What truths, artifacts, or inscriptions remain hidden beneath streets, rubble, and soil, waiting to be rediscovered? And perhaps most compellingly, what does Timgad teach us about the fragility of even the most meticulously designed cities, and the stories that survive only in shadow, stone, and imagination? From the cliffs and river valleys of Bali, where human ingenuity intertwines with the natural world, our journey now moves across oceans and continents to the misty highlands of southwestern Colombia. Here, amid verdant mountains and winding rivers, lies San Agustín Archaeological Park, a landscape of colossal stone monuments, mysterious tombs, and megalithic sculptures that continue to defy explanation. The park stretches over a rugged terrain, where grassy slopes give way to ancient terraces, and stone pathways wind among monuments that have endured centuries of weather, conflict, and neglect. Each step into this archaeological landscape feels like a step into a civilization's memory, one that speaks in stone rather than words, yet whose meaning remains tantalizingly elusive. The sculptures of San Agustín are the first to capture the observer's attention. Carved from volcanic rock, some stand over 4 meters tall, their forms both human and supernatural, combining recognizable anatomical features with abstract geometric patterns. Faces with pronounced eyes and mouths seem to observe the landscape, as if watching over rivers, valleys, and tombs. Figures wield axes, ceremonial staffs, or embrace enigmatic poses whose significance remains uncertain. The artistry is sophisticated, suggesting a mastery of stonework and symbolic representation, yet no written records survive to explain their purpose. Who were these figures meant to represent? Ancestors? Deities? Or something else entirely? The park is also home to a network of underground tombs and ceremonial mounds, many aligned with the sculptures above. Excavations have revealed burial chambers containing human remains, pottery, and ritual objects, yet the reasoning behind their placement is unclear. Were the tombs reserved for elite individuals, or did they serve communal spiritual functions? Some mounds are oriented along river valleys or mountain axes, hinting at an intentional relationship between landscape, cosmology, and ritual practice. How did this ancient society conceive of space and sacred geography? And what significance did the alignment of tombs and sculptures hold in their worldview? Dating the site has been a complex endeavor. Radiocarbon analysis suggests that the monumental sculptures and tombs were constructed between 1000 BCE and 800 CE, yet the society that produced them remains largely undefined. Scholars have linked San Agustín to broader cultural traditions of the Andean region, but much about the people, their social structure, governance, and spiritual practices remains conjectural. Did they have written language? And if so, has it been lost? Were the monumental sculptures the work of a centralized authority, or the cumulative expression of a community's spiritual and cultural imagination over generations? Some of the most compelling mysteries involve the symbolism of the sculptures themselves. Many display combinations of human and animal features, often blending jaguar, bird, or serpent motifs with human forms. Such hybrid imagery appears to reflect cosmological beliefs, shamanic practices, or mythological narratives, yet the exact interpretation remains unknown. Do these figures represent transformations between worlds, mediators between the living and the dead, or embodiments of ancestral power? And why are certain figures repeated across the landscape, while others appear only once, suggesting a hierarchy or unique ceremonial significance? The scale and precision of the stonework also provoke speculation. Some megaliths weigh several tons, yet there are no records indicating how these ancient artisans moved, shaped, or positioned such massive stones. Did they rely solely on ropes, levers, and human coordination, or were their techniques and methods now lost to history? The monument's endurance through earthquakes, erosion, and centuries of exposure speaks to a remarkable understanding of both material and environment, yet the processes behind their creation remain shrouded in mystery. Equally enigmatic is the apparent integration of art and landscape. Sculptures often overlook rivers, valleys, and mountain ridges, as if positioned to watch over natural features or ritual routes. Tombs lie within mounds that align with sacred axes, pathways, or astronomical markers, hinting at a society that harmonized human activity with the rhythms of the natural and celestial world. How intentional were these alignments, and what rituals or ceremonies might have accompanied them? Were these megaliths silent witnesses to processions, offerings, or communal gatherings whose meaning is now obscured? Some researchers propose that the site served not merely as a necropolis, but as a ceremonial hub where the living and the dead, the earthly and the supernatural, intersected. The blending of tombs, sculptures, and landscape suggests a worldview in which ancestors and deities were integrated into everyday life, guiding and protecting communities while maintaining continuity across generations. Yet without written records, much of this remains interpretive, reliant on material evidence, oral tradition, and comparison with neighboring cultures. Folklore and legend also contribute to the park's aura of mystery. Local stories speak of spirits inhabiting the sculptures, of hidden treasures buried beneath the mounds, and of ceremonies conducted by enigmatic priestly figures. While such accounts cannot be verified, they underscore a persistent recognition of the site's spiritual resonance. The convergence of tangible artifacts and intangible narrative creates a layered historical experience where the lines between archaeology, myth, and memory blur. The enduring fascination with San Agustín lies in its combination of beauty, scale, and incompleteness. Every sculpture, every tomb, and every mound offers insight into a civilization whose reach was sophisticated, yet whose voice has been largely lost. Even today, ongoing excavations, studies, and preservation efforts reveal fragments of knowledge while leaving countless questions unanswered. What social, spiritual, or political structures underpinned the construction of this monumental landscape? How did these people conceive of death, power, and ancestry? And what stories, encoded in stone and earth, remain undiscovered, waiting to be interpreted? San Agustín Archaeological Park is a testament to human imagination, ingenuity, and the enduring power of mystery. Its monuments are silent yet eloquent, each telling a fragment of a story that spans centuries, inviting us to imagine a culture whose knowledge and beliefs resonate across time. And as we wander among the sculptures, ascend the terraces, and peer into the tombs, one question lingers. How much more of this civilization's secrets remain buried beneath the hills, hidden in plain sight, or lost to the passage of time, waiting for patient eyes to uncover them? From the carved and inscribed Kudurru stones of Babylon, which testify to the intertwining of law, divinity, and human ambition, our journey now takes us across oceans and millennia to the central highlands of Mexico, near the modern city of Toluca. Here, nestled among the remnants of the pre-Columbian settlement of Calixtlahuaca, lies an artifact that has puzzled archaeologists, historians, and scholars alike: the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head. Small in size, yet monumental in implication, this terracotta sculpture challenges our understanding of ancient contact, trade, and cultural exchange, inviting us to question how objects and ideas moved across worlds thought to be isolated. The head is diminutive, barely a few centimeters tall, yet its detail is remarkable. Its features, deep-set eyes, a pronounced nose, and a firm, sculpted mouth, display a style unmistakably Roman. The proportions and artistic conventions mirror the Greco-Roman tradition of portraiture, yet it was found in a burial context firmly dated to the classic period of Mesoamerican history, around the 3rd to 4th centuries CE. This apparent dissonance between form and context is at the heart of the head's enduring mystery. How did an object so characteristic of the Mediterranean world find its way into a tomb thousands of miles away, in a culture with no known direct contact with Rome? Archaeological reports confirm the head's provenance. It was discovered beneath layers of pre-Columbian artifacts within a shaft tomb associated with the Calixtlahuaca culture. The stratigraphy suggests that it had been intentionally placed there, not deposited accidentally or through modern contamination. Its presence in a funerary context implies significance. Was it a sacred object, a status symbol, or a curiosity brought from afar? The purpose remains unknown, but the deliberate placement hints at ritual, memory, or symbolic meaning. Mainstream explanations suggest several possibilities. The head could have traveled indirectly through trade networks, moving from the Mediterranean to North Africa, then across the Atlantic, before reaching Mesoamerica. Such long chains of transmission, while theoretically possible, lack direct evidence and would have required an extraordinary convergence of circumstances. Alternatively, some scholars propose that the head represents a coincidental convergence of artistic style, a phenomenon in which similar aesthetic solutions emerge independently across cultures. Yet the uncanny similarity to Roman portraiture, in both technique and proportion, makes this explanation difficult to reconcile fully. more speculative interpretations have inevitably emerged. Some researchers have suggested that the head is evidence of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, a notion that, if proven, would radically alter our understanding of ancient globalization. Could Roman or Mediterranean traders, explorers, or castaways have reached the Americas centuries before Columbus, leaving behind tangible evidence in the form of this small sculpture? If so, why is this the only known example? And why is there no corroborating archaeological record? The mystery deepens precisely because the artifact is both convincing in its style and isolated in its context, straddling the line between plausibility and improbability. The craftsmanship itself invites careful examination. Made from terracotta, the head exhibits a level of skill and attention to detail uncommon in other Mesoamerican ceramics of the period. The features are carved with precision, capturing an individuality and realism that suggest a practiced artisan familiar with portraiture conventions. Was this object imported as a finished product, or could it have been produced locally by someone exposed to foreign artistic influences? If it is an import, what does its presence tell us about the reach of trade networks or cultural curiosity in the ancient world? Equally intriguing is the cultural context of Calixtlahuaca itself. The settlement was part of a broader network of urban centers, with evidence of complex social organization, ritual practice, and long-distance exchange. Yet nothing in the surrounding material culture explicitly points to Mediterranean influence. There are no Roman coins, inscriptions, or other artifacts to corroborate the head's stylistic origins. Its uniqueness raises questions. Was this object valued for its novelty, revered for its foreignness, or integrated into local belief systems in ways now lost to us? The discovery of the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head also prompts reflection on human perception of history. Objects like this challenge our assumptions about cultural boundaries, technological exchange, and the limitations of human connectivity. Could it be that ancient societies were more interconnected than we assume, moving goods, ideas, and even artistic conventions across vast distances in ways that leave only tantalizing fragments behind? Or does this head represent an anomaly, a single convergence of circumstances whose meaning is forever obscured? Even modern analysis cannot provide certainty. Scientific tests confirm the age of the burial context, the composition of the clay, and the authenticity of the artifact, yet none can conclusively explain how it arrived there or why it was placed in a tomb. The very small scale of the head, combined with the human propensity for myth-making, has allowed speculation to flourish. Theories of lost voyages, secret trade routes, or accidental displacement all compete with cautious academic interpretations. And yet, the artifact refuses to yield its secrets, preserving the tension between evidence and imagination. What the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head ultimately demonstrates is the persistence of mystery in the archaeological record. It is a tangible object, firmly dated, materially verified, yet conceptually elusive. It embodies the gaps in our knowledge, the uncertainties of ancient human networks, and the enduring capacity of a single artifact to provoke wonder. Standing before it, or even imagining it within its tomb, it prompts questions about human ingenuity, curiosity, and the ways in which cultures perceive, adopt, and recontextualize objects from afar. The head also challenges us to consider the limitations of historical understanding. For every artifact whose story we can reconstruct with confidence, there are others whose meaning is partially or wholly obscured. The Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head exists in that liminal space, between the known and the unknowable, the ordinary and the extraordinary, the documented and the speculative. What other objects remain hidden, buried in tombs or settlements, awaiting discovery to challenge our assumptions? And what does this head tell us about the imagination, ambition, and interconnectedness of ancient peoples, even in times and places we once believed isolated. In the quiet corridors of museums or the shaded rooms of excavation sites, the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head endures as both artifact and enigma. Its small features, Roman in style yet Mexican in context, continue to spark debate, inspire research, and provoke wonder. And as we ponder its origins, placement, and meaning, we are reminded of the enduring power of objects to bridge time, geography, and culture, and of the mysteries that still lie hidden in the soil, waiting to reveal themselves to those patient enough to look. From the meticulously planned streets and silent forum of Timgad, where Roman ambition echoes across centuries, our journey returns once more to the timeless deserts of Egypt, where colossal figures stand in quiet vigil over the Nile's west bank. Here, in the shadow of the ancient city of Thebes, rise the Colossi of Memnon, two immense stone statues that have loomed over the landscape for more than 3 millennia. Weathered by wind, sun, and the Nile's seasonal shifts, they remain as imposing today as they must have when first carved, yet beneath their silent exterior lies a history filled with mystery, wonder, and unanswered questions. Each statue, carved from massive blocks of quartzite transported from quarries miles away, represents Pharaoh Amenhotep III, seated in eternal repose. Measuring over 18 meters in height and weighing hundreds of tons, the figures were originally part of a grand mortuary complex designed to honor the pharaoh and assert his divine authority. Their faces, though partially eroded, still exude a solemn dignity, eyes gazing eastward across the floodplains as if acknowledging both land and sky. The precision of their carving, the symmetry of posture, and the sheer scale speak to the extraordinary skill of Egyptian artisans, yet questions remain. How were these colossal stones transported and assembled with such accuracy? And what additional symbolism might have been encoded in their form, now lost to time? The Colossi of Memnon are known as much for their mysterious voice as for their size. In antiquity, travelers reported that the northern statue emitted a musical sound at dawn, often described as a singing or whistling. Ancient writers, including Strabo and Pausanias, documented these occurrences with awe and speculation, attributing them to the statue's mystical properties. Modern investigation suggests that thermal expansion of the stone combined with early damage from an earthquake may have caused the phenomenon, yet the exact mechanics remain debated. Could the ancients have unintentionally created an acoustic marvel, or did they perceive an ordinary natural effect as a sign of divine presence? And how much did these sounds influence the myth, reverence, and ritual practices surrounding the statues? Beyond their acoustic enigma, the colossi invite deeper questions about context and purpose. Originally flanked by temples, gardens, and statues of lesser nobles and deities, they were the visible guardians of a mortuary temple dedicated to Amenhotep III. The temple itself has largely disappeared, its stones repurposed or lost, leaving the colossi as the primary witnesses to a vanished landscape of royal devotion. What ceremonies, processions, or offerings took place in the shadow of these figures? How did ordinary citizens perceive them, as symbols of divine kingship, protective icons, or objects of awe bordering on fear? The craftsmanship of the statues reveals a careful balance of artistry and symbolism. Though seated and rigid, their bodies are proportionally perfect, reflecting Egyptian ideals of order, stability, and divine presence. Inscriptions, some still faintly visible, once detailed the pharaoh's achievements, religious dedications, and the offering of prayers. Yet centuries of erosion, flooding, and earthquakes have rendered much of this text illegible, leaving gaps in our understanding of the precise messages conveyed. What knowledge, political assertions, or spiritual intentions might have been encoded in these inscriptions now lost to human sight. Speculation extends further when considering their placement. The statues face east, toward the rising sun, an orientation rich with symbolic meaning. In Egyptian cosmology, the east was associated with birth, renewal, and the divine journey of the sun god. Was this alignment intended to integrate the pharaoh into the eternal cycles of the cosmos, reinforcing his divine status and ensuring protection in the afterlife? Or might there be additional, now invisible elements, lines of sight, hidden structures, or ritual markers that enhanced their symbolic power? The intersection of geography, astronomy, and spiritual intent remains a compelling, largely unanswered question. The Colossi have also inspired centuries of myth and legend. By the Hellenistic period, they were associated with the Greek hero Memnon, believed to be an Ethiopian king slain in the Trojan War, whose mourning was said to produce the singing phenomenon. Such myths illustrate the way cultural memory transforms objects over time, layering interpretation atop reality, and hinting at the ways ancient monuments serve as palimpsests of human imagination. How did the Egyptians themselves understand the statue's significance, and how did foreign visitors reshape the narrative to fit their own mythologies? Even in modern times, the Colossi exert a sense of mystery. Travelers, archaeologists, and photographers describe the same feeling, that standing before these figures is to confront a presence that transcends mere stone. The scale alone inspires humility, while the eroded features evoke a passage of centuries in which human ambition, natural forces, and divine imagination have intersected, yet the incomplete understanding of their purpose, their lost temple, and the partially illegible inscriptions ensures that much of their story remains suspended between fact, interpretation, and conjecture. Some scholars speculate that additional features of the complex, buried beneath sand and soil, may still await discovery. Could there be hidden chambers, inscriptions, or smaller statues that would further illuminate the intentions of Amenhotep III and his artisans? What might a more complete understanding of the mortuary temple reveal about religious practice, architectural strategy, or the pharaoh's relationship to his subjects? Each unanswered question underscores the Colossi's enduring mystery. They are monuments not only to one man's ambition, but to the human impulse to create enduring symbols, even when their full meaning may never be recovered. The Colossi of Memnon endure as both guardians and enigmas. They are witnesses to the passage of millennia, surviving natural disasters, looters, and the shifting sands of history, yet retaining an aura of deliberate presence, authority, and mystery. In their silent vigil, they challenge us to reflect on the intentions, beliefs, and capabilities of the civilization that created them. What truths remain hidden in their stone, their placement, or the lost temple complex they once flanked? And perhaps most compellingly, how much of their power, both physical and symbolic, resides in what we cannot see, hear, or fully comprehend? As we stand before the Colossi of Memnon today, the wind moves across the desert plain, sunlight illuminates their eroded features, and the Nile flows silently nearby. The figures evoke both human achievement and the persistence of mystery, reminding us that history is as much about questions as it is about answers. And so the Colossi endure, not only as monuments of stone and artistry, but as eternal invitations to wonder, to reflect, and to ask what secrets, long buried and partially forgotten, might still lie waiting beneath the Egyptian sky. From the towering figures of the Colossi of Memnon, where stone and human ambition converge in monumental presence, our journey now moves eastward into the ancient landscapes of the Levant. In what is now modern-day Jordan, amidst rolling plains and the gentle slopes of the Zarqa River Valley, lies the site of Ain Ghazal, one of the most remarkable and enigmatic Neolithic settlements ever discovered. Hidden beneath layers of soil and time, this village preserves artifacts that date back more than 8,500 years, and among its treasures are the hauntingly human forms known as the stone heads of Ghazal. These artifacts, life-sized and half-life-sized, are sculpted from lime plaster with reed and twine supports, their forms painstakingly crafted to represent human features with an uncanny realism. Some are fragments of torsos, others complete heads, and each is marked by hollow eyes, carefully shaped noses, and subtle details that suggest individual characteristics. Unlike the monumental colossi of later civilizations, these heads are intimate, evocative, and unsettling in their stillness. Silent witnesses to a world that predates written history, yet displays sophistication, ritual, and intent far beyond what one might expect from a small farming village. Archaeologists believe the heads were created between 7,200 and 5,000 BCE, at a time when agriculture was transforming human societies, reshaping social structures, and introducing new forms of ritual and communal identity. But why these particular objects? The heads do not appear to be decorative, nor are they practical in any utilitarian sense. Many were found buried beneath floors of the settlement, suggesting a ritual deposition, perhaps honoring ancestors, marking the dead, or maintaining a spiritual connection with those who came before. Were they intended as guardians, as vessels of memory, or as symbolic representations of power and lineage? Or could their purpose have been more abstract, serving as conduits between the living and unseen worlds? Their craftsmanship invites both admiration and speculation. The creators used plaster and reed to form the heads, shaping each one with deliberate attention to proportion and expression. Some features are exaggerated, large eyes or elongated faces, perhaps to convey spiritual significance, heightened awareness, or otherworldly presence. Others show signs of repair or reworking, suggesting that these objects were maintained, revered, and possibly reused over decades or generations. How did Neolithic artisans develop such precise techniques so long before the advent of metallurgy or large-scale civilization? And what cultural or spiritual knowledge guided their design choices, now lost to time? The context of the heads within Ghazal adds another layer of mystery. The settlement itself was unusually large for its period, with long rectangular houses arranged in streets, sophisticated water management, and evidence of organized communal activity. Pottery, figurines, and tools reveal a society aware of its environment, capable of complex labor, and engaged in symbolic expression. Yet the heads stand apart, their scale and detail surpassing the ordinary artifacts of daily life. Were they commissioned by a small elite, or did they emerge from collective effort? Were they meant to embody individuals, mythic figures, or abstract concepts of human identity and spirituality? Even the manner of their burial is enigmatic. Many of the heads were interred beneath house floors or in pits at the edge of the settlement, sometimes broken or partially deconstructed before deposition. Did this signify the death of a person they represented, a ritual retirement of the object, or an intentional symbolic act whose meaning is now opaque? Archaeologists have debated whether the heads were votive offerings, memorials, or objects of a nascent religious practice. Could they have been part of ceremonies involving the community's collective memory, ancestor veneration, or communication with forces beyond human comprehension? The sheer number of heads discovered at Ghazal, more than a dozen intact or partially preserved, suggests a cultural significance that went beyond mere ornamentation. Their faces, though abstracted in places, are immediately recognizable as human, evoking empathy, curiosity, and perhaps even unease in those who encounter them today. How did these people understand identity, individuality, and mortality? Were the heads designed to reflect the living, the dead, or a concept that transcends both? And what other aspects of their society, belief systems, rituals, or cosmology, are encoded in these fragile forms, waiting to be uncovered. Modern science offers tantalizing glimpses into their construction and use. Studies of plaster composition reveal a careful selection of materials, suggesting an advanced understanding of durability and form. Residue analysis hints at paint or pigments applied to some surfaces, which may have imbued the heads with color and symbolic meaning. Yet without written records, the interpretation of these details remains speculative, leaving room for wonder and the recognition that some aspects of Neolithic life may forever elude certainty. The stone heads of Ain Ghazal also provoke reflection on the universality of human expression. Across time and geography, societies have sought to represent themselves, their leaders, their gods, and their ancestors in tangible forms. From colossal statues in Egypt to intimate Neolithic heads in Jordan, the impulse to preserve identity, convey meaning, and connect with forces beyond immediate perception is enduring. What drives this impulse, and why do certain cultures leave behind artifacts that continue to speak across millennia? As we observe the heads today, carefully displayed in museums or partially preserved in situ, their impact is undeniable. They evoke both human presence and absence, individual personality and communal significance. They are at once familiar and alien, tangible yet mysterious. And in their stillness, they challenge us to reflect on the lives, beliefs, and skills of people who left no written record, yet communicated so profoundly through stone, plaster, and craft. The stone heads of Ain Ghazal endure as silent interlocutors between past and present. They are evidence of a society capable of thought, ritual, and artistry that continues to intrigue scholars and visitors alike. Yet their meaning remains incomplete, suspended in a liminal space between archaeology and imagination. What stories, lives, and practices are encoded within these faces? What further discoveries might reveal more about the spiritual and social world of Neolithic Jordan? And what other voices, silent yet persistent, await recognition in the soil and stones of settlements long abandoned? Standing before these ancient heads today, one cannot help but feel both awe and curiosity. Their presence reminds us that history is not solely written in texts or monumental architecture, but can also reside in small, carefully crafted forms, capable of carrying human thought and mystery across thousands of years. And as we contemplate their hollow eyes and carefully modeled features, we are left with an enduring question. How much of the world that produced them remains hidden, waiting patiently beneath the earth, and what secrets might yet be revealed by patient observation, careful study, and human imagination? From the hollow eyes and carefully modeled faces of Ain Ghazal, which whisper of human presence nearly 10 millennia ago, our journey moves once more into the cradle of civilization, the fertile plains of ancient Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Here, among the ruins of temples, ziggurats, and palaces, lie enigmatic stone artifacts known as the Kudurru stones, or boundary stones. At first glance, these irregularly shaped slabs may seem like simple markers, yet each bears inscriptions, reliefs, and symbols that encode both law and ritual, property and power, and, intriguingly, a profound connection to the divine. A typical Kudurru is a block of black basalt, limestone or sandstone, standing between 0.5 meter and 2 meters tall, often rounded at the top and inscribed with cuneiform text. The inscriptions record the allocation of land, ownership rights, or legal decrees issued by kings or governors during the Babylonian period, roughly between the 16th and 7th centuries BCE. At the same time, the stones are adorned with images of gods, celestial symbols, and protective spirits, intertwining practical governance with cosmic oversight. They are at once legal documents and ritual objects, and this duality is what has long fascinated scholars. How did these ancient peoples conceive of authority, justice, and divine intervention in the very same stone? The symbols carved upon the Kudurru stones are particularly striking. Celestial bodies, divine emblems, and animal representations, lions, snakes, bulls, populate the upper sections, often corresponding to specific deities. These images are more than decorative. They are protective, ensuring that the land grant or decree is safeguarded by the gods themselves. But why this elaborate intertwining of law and religion? What did the Babylonians perceive about the interaction between human action and divine will, and how much of this worldview can we truly reconstruct from the surviving inscriptions? Some stones even employ cryptic or symbolic representations whose precise meaning has eluded modern interpretation, hinting at a system of knowledge partially lost to time. Kudurru stones also invite speculation because of the locations in which they were discovered. Many were buried intentionally, often placed in temples or in secret locations to protect the record from theft or tampering. Unlike typical legal documents intended for public display, these stones often occupied liminal spaces, hidden yet sacred, tangible yet symbolic. Could this dual purpose, practical and ritual, indicate a culture deeply concerned with the permanence of agreements and the moral or spiritual consequences of breaking them? Did the Babylonians perceive land not merely as property but as a sacred gift, whose stewardship demanded both legal and divine oversight? The craftsmanship of the Kudurru stones reflects both technical skill and ideological intent. The inscriptions are precise, the cuneiform meticulously carved, and the reliefs carefully proportioned. Yet, like many ancient artifacts, erosion, damage, and incomplete recovery obscure portions of the record. Some stones survive only in fragments, leaving gaps that invite both interpretation and speculation. How many more Kudurrus, hidden in temples or private collections, remain undiscovered, their inscriptions waiting to illuminate the interplay of law, ritual, and cosmology in Babylonian life? Beyond their legal and religious function, the Kudurru stones hint at broader questions about Babylonian society. They suggest a civilization deeply invested in recording, structuring, and regulating human activity, but always with a recognition of forces beyond the mortal realm. The combination of textual precision and symbolic richness implies a worldview in which justice, memory, and cosmic order are inseparable. How did ordinary people interact with these stones? Did they perceive them primarily as legal instruments, as sacred objects, or as a potent fusion of both? Some stones include curses or warnings carved into their surfaces, threats of divine retribution against those who would tamper with the land grants or violate the decree. These warnings underscore the gravity of property, law, and ritual, yet they also raise questions about the social and spiritual psychology of the time. Did these inscriptions succeed in deterring misdeeds, or were they primarily symbolic gestures to reinforce a moral universe? And what does this interplay of fear, faith, and authority tell us about Babylonian conceptions of governance and divine oversight? The artistry of the stones often combines naturalistic and abstract representation. Gods may be depicted in human form, animal form, or as symbolic emblems, blending familiar imagery with mystical abstraction. The cuneiform text, often painstakingly arranged around the figures, documents names, dates, and legal clauses, yet simultaneously invites contemplation on the intertwining of human and divine knowledge. How much of this symbolism reflected local traditions, royal ideology, or a codified system of cosmology? And how many subtleties, nuances of shape, placement, or proportion remain invisible to modern eyes, lost in translation or eroded by time? The survival of the Kudurru stones also poses questions about preservation and memory. They were buried to endure, and in doing so, they became hidden records, discovered only millennia later by archaeologists and historians. What other practices, agreements, or rituals have vanished without a trace, leaving only partial witnesses like these stones? And how much do the surviving artifacts reveal, versus how much remains tantalizingly beyond reconstruction? The Kudurru stones of Babylon endure not only as legal and ritual objects, but as symbols of a civilization grappling with permanence, authority, and cosmic order. They record human action, yet invoke divine oversight. They communicate specificity, yet retain ambiguity. In their silent presence, they remind us that even the most practical of human endeavors, land ownership, legal adjudication, or civic regulation, can be suffused with mystery, reverence, and symbolic meaning. As we study these stones today, we are confronted with both clarity and ambiguity. The inscriptions reveal names, dates, and laws. The reliefs evoke gods, celestial forces, and protective spirits. Yet the precise intentions, the full cultural context, and the human experiences that animated these stones remain elusive. What secrets are embedded in the glyphs we cannot yet decipher? How many Kudurru stones remain hidden beneath temple floors or forgotten ruins, waiting to illuminate the complexity of Babylonian thought? And perhaps most intriguingly, what does the fusion of law, ritual, and cosmic symbolism tell us about the human impulse to anchor society in forces both tangible and transcendent? The Kudurru stones endure as silent witnesses to a civilization that sought permanence in both stone and symbol, leaving behind objects that challenge our understanding while offering glimpses into the legal, spiritual, and cosmological imagination of ancient Mesopotamia. Standing before them, one is struck by the same combination of technical mastery, ideological depth, and unanswered questions that characterizes so many other ancient mysteries. And as we ponder their inscriptions, their symbols, and the people who commissioned them, we are left with a compelling invitation. What more might these stones reveal about a world long past, yet still whispering to us through the stone, the glyphs, and the shadows of history? From the corridors of Rome, filled with marble, intrigue, and the echoes of imperial power, our journey now takes us to the rolling hills and verdant landscapes of Central Europe, to a place where history and geography converge in a puzzle that continues to captivate both scholars and explorers. In the Visoko Valley of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a series of hills rise above the surrounding plains, their slopes seemingly ordinary at first glance. Yet some claim these are more than natural formations. They are the so-called Pyramids of Bosnia, colossal structures said to rival the monuments of Egypt in scale, alignment, and mystery. The hills, Visočica, Pljesevica, and others, are undeniably striking. From certain vantage points, their shapes suggest geometric precision, sharp edges, symmetrical slopes, and alignments that appear to correspond with cardinal points. Proponents argue that the landscape itself hints at deliberate construction, suggesting a civilization capable of monumental engineering long before conventional histories allow. Skeptics, of course, see natural erosion and geological processes as explanations for these formations. Yet the allure of the mystery lies in the tension between what can be measured and what remains unexplained in the way the human eye perceives patterns in both stone and story. Excavations in the Visoko Valley have uncovered tunnels, stone blocks, and artifacts that have fueled debate. Some researchers report finding layers of stonework beneath the hills, unusual concrete-like materials, and remnants of walls that hint at purposeful construction. Carbon dating of organic matter in certain passages suggests human activity, though the exact origins and purpose of these tunnels remain uncertain. Are they remnants of ancient habitation, part of a forgotten ceremonial complex, or simply the product of natural fissures and modern excavation efforts? Each discovery raises as many questions as it answers, deepening the sense of mystery that envelops the valley. Historical records offer little clarity. Bosnia's prehistory is rich and complex, with evidence of human settlement spanning millennia. Yet there is no contemporaneous account that describes pyramid building in the region. This absence leaves open the possibility that either an unknown civilization once shaped the landscape or that the pyramidal forms are purely natural, misinterpreted through the lens of modern imagination. Some argue that even if the formations are natural, the presence of tunnels, stonework, and artifacts indicates human modification, a blending of nature and culture that creates a landscape as enigmatic as it is compelling. The alignment of the hills adds another layer of intrigue. Observers note that the peaks seem to correspond with solstices and cardinal directions, echoing the astronomical considerations seen in ancient structures worldwide. Could these alignments have been intentional, reflecting early understanding of astronomy and geometry? Or is the alignment coincidental, a product of human pattern recognition superimposed on the terrain? While surveys have measured angles, slopes, and orientations with precision, the interpretation remains contested, inviting both scientific investigation and speculative thought. Tunnels beneath the hills provide one of the more enigmatic elements of the site. Some passages are narrow, others broad and reinforced with stone. Walls bear marks that suggest human shaping, yet the exact age and purpose of these tunnels remain uncertain. Were they ceremonial, practical, or protective? Some theorists propose that they once served as storage, refuge, or ritual spaces for a civilization whose records have been lost. Others caution that the tunnels may be naturally occurring, enlarged or modified in recent centuries. The ambiguity itself is central to the mystery. Each step along the subterranean corridors is both exploration and conjecture, a journey into the unknown. The debate surrounding the Bosnian pyramids has sparked fascination and controversy. Mainstream archaeology largely regards the hills as natural formations, while alternative researchers argue for a lost advanced civilization. Scientific scrutiny, peer review, and ongoing excavations continue to explore both possibilities. Yet, even as researchers measure, map, and test, the valley retains a sense of ambiguity, an interplay between evidence, interpretation, and imagination. It is this unresolved tension that draws both professionals and enthusiasts alike, the sense that beneath these slopes, or within their tunnels, lies something that could challenge or deepen our understanding of human history. Beyond the evidence, the story evokes a sense of wonder. The hills rise in quiet majesty over the valley, visible for miles around, their slopes catching the light of sunrise and sunset in ways that accentuate their symmetry. Visitors report a strange resonance, a sensation of entering a space shaped by both nature and intention. Whether these impressions are psychological, environmental, or indicative of a deeper truth, they contribute to the enduring fascination of the site. The human mind, after all, is drawn to patterns, narratives, and mysteries that resist resolution, and the Visoko Valley presents all three in abundance. The pyramids of Bosnia, whether natural, modified, or fully artificial, remind us of the tension between certainty and wonder. They challenge conventional timelines and geographical assumptions, inviting reflection on the gaps in our historical knowledge and the ways in which landscapes can hold secrets beyond immediate comprehension. What civilizations, if any, once walked these hills, shaping them for purposes now obscured? What artifacts or knowledge might lie buried beneath the slopes or hidden in the tunnels, waiting for patient eyes to uncover them? And so the mystery remains open. The hills of Visoko continue to rise silently over the valley, their forms shifting subtly with erosion and vegetation, their slopes retaining the geometric suggestion that has inspired both study and speculation. The Bosnian pyramids stand as a testament to the human desire to find meaning in the landscape, to search for echoes of the past where history is incomplete or contested. As we gaze upon these hills, one question persists. What truths lie hidden beneath their slopes, waiting to emerge from the interplay of stone, time, and imagination? From the distant highlands of central Mexico, where the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca Head evokes questions of ancient contact and the unexpected movement of ideas across continents, we turn now to another mountainous realm, this time in the cloud-laden Andes of northern Peru. Here, amid the steep cliffs and dense jungles of the Amazonas region, lived a mysterious people known to the Spanish as the Chachapoya, the Cloud People. Their civilization, flourishing from roughly 900 to 1470 CE, remains shrouded in enigma, leaving behind striking architecture, funerary traditions, and artifacts that continue to puzzle historians and archaeologists alike. The landscape itself seems to conspire with mystery. Towering cliffs, enveloped in perpetual mist, plunge into deep valleys where the air is thick with humidity and the vegetation almost impenetrable. Within this realm, the Chachapoya carved cities and fortresses from the stone cliffs, their structures clinging to mountainsides with a combination of ingenuity and daring. Of these sites, Cuelap stands as the most imposing, a massive stone citadel covering more than 6 hectares, with walls up to 20 meters high, intricately shaped stones forming defensive towers and residential complexes. How did a people isolated in such rugged terrain develop the organizational capacity to build at this scale, and what motivated them to choose these seemingly inaccessible locations? The Chachapoya's construction techniques are remarkable for their precision and endurance. Unlike the massive interlocking stones of the Inca to the south, the Chachapoya favored smaller, finely shaped stones laid without mortar, creating walls that could withstand earthquakes, yet remain visually cohesive. The citadels and cliffside dwellings were designed with strategic foresight. Elevated positions provided panoramic views, natural barriers offered defense, and internal layouts suggest social hierarchies or communal planning. But why did they disappear so abruptly after the Spanish conquest? Was it disease, warfare, assimilation, or a combination of factors that erased their culture, leaving only their stone legacy as testimony? Even more enigmatic are the Chachapoya funerary practices, which reveal a complex engagement with death and memory. Mausoleums, often referred to as sarcophagi, perch atop cliffs, sometimes several meters above the forest floor, each containing mummified remains. These mummies, wrapped meticulously and sometimes adorned with textiles or figurines, hint at ritual sophistication and a profound concern with the afterlife. Anthropologists and archaeologists have studied these remains extensively, yet many questions remain. Why were the deceased placed in such perilous locations? Were these burials reserved for elites, or did they reflect a broader societal practice? And how did the Chachapoya conceptualize the boundary between the living and the dead, the earthly and the divine? The Spanish chroniclers provide tantalizing, if biased, glimpses into the Chachapoya world. They describe a people skilled in warfare, fiercely independent, and remarkably adept at surviving in their challenging environment. The conquistadors' records note the Cloud People's resistance, their use of terraces, fortifications, and swift maneuvers across terrain that was unfamiliar, even treacherous, to outsiders. Yet these accounts are fragmentary and filtered through European perspectives, leaving gaps in our understanding of the Chachapoya worldview, social organization, and spiritual life. How much of their culture was lost not only to conquest and disease, but to the interpretive lens of foreign observers? Beyond architecture and funerary practices, the Chachapoya left behind art and iconography that remain mysterious. Pottery, textiles, and small carved figurines suggest a symbolic language or ritual practice that is only partially understood. Motifs often depict animals, geometric patterns, or hybrid forms, hinting at cosmological beliefs and mythologies that have vanished with the people who created them. Were these designs meant to protect, instruct, or commemorate? And how did such symbolic systems influence daily life, governance, or spiritual observance within a society living amidst clouds and cliffs. The Chachapoya's disappearance amplifies their mystery. By the late 15th century, they were absorbed by or conquered by the Inca Empire, their cities abandoned or repurposed. Subsequent centuries of colonial disruption and the dense jungle growth of the region buried much of their civilization from view. Modern archaeology, only beginning in the 20th century, has revealed the ruins gradually, yet the incomplete record challenges us to reconstruct their lives, beliefs, and technologies. Were there oral traditions, lost writing systems, or forms of knowledge that could have illuminated their culture, now vanished forever? Speculation continues to enrich their story. Some researchers suggest that the Chachapoya may have had knowledge of astronomy or environmental management, as evidenced by the alignment of certain structures and the cultivation of high-altitude crops on terraces. Others have proposed connections between remote Chachapoya sites and mythic narratives, hinting at a broader network of Andean cultural exchange. While these theories are tentative, they underscore the complexity of a civilization that thrived in isolation, yet demonstrated remarkable ingenuity, adaptation, and cultural expression. Standing in the ruins today, the sense of awe is immediate. Fog drifts over the cliffs, softening the edges of the stone walls, while the sound of distant rivers and forest life fills the air. The Quelops Citadel and other sites embody a dialogue between human effort and the natural world, revealing both resilience and mystery. Yet for every terrace, wall, or mausoleum uncovered, there remain countless questions. How did the Chachapoya negotiate survival in such a precarious environment? What motivated the design of their fortresses and tombs? And how did their understanding of life, death, and the cosmos shape a society that seems both familiar in its ingenuity and alien in its isolation? The Chachapoya, the so-called cloud people, endure as shadows cast across steep valleys and misted cliffs. Their architecture, funerary traditions, and artifacts are tangible evidence of a civilization that thrived on the edge of visibility, now largely erased from living memory. And yet their story persists, not only in stone and bone, but in the questions they leave behind. Questions of human adaptability, of cultural memory, and of the ways in which isolation and ingenuity can produce societies both astonishing and enigmatic. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is the one they leave us with. A civilization so determined to inscribe itself upon the clouds and cliffs that, even in disappearance, it continues to challenge our understanding, inviting us to ponder not just what we have discovered, but what remains hidden. What secrets linger in the unexplored valleys of northern Peru? What stories, beliefs, and rituals of the Chachapoya remain buried beneath soil, jungle, and time, waiting for patient eyes and careful hands to uncover them? And as we contemplate the cloud people, we are reminded that history often speaks in fragments, shadows, and silence. And it is in these fragments that the deepest chills of human mystery are felt. From the mist-shrouded citadels of the Chachapoya in the Andean highlands, where stone and fog preserve the enigma of a vanished civilization, our journey now turns north across continents and millennia to the ancient landscapes of Italy. Here, in the fertile Po Valley near modern-day Piacenza, an artifact was unearthed that has fascinated scholars for centuries: the Etruscan liver of Piacenza. Unlike monumental architecture or funerary sites, this object is intimate in scale. Small, portable, yet laden with mystery and insight into a world that predates the rise of Rome itself. The liver is a bronze model, roughly the size of a human hand, cast in 3 dimensions and shaped with striking realism. Its surface is divided into sections, each inscribed with the names of deities, forming a celestial map of religious and ritual significance. The overall shape imitates that of a sheep's liver, an organ central to Etruscan divination practices, known as hepatoscopy. Here, in miniature, the liver becomes both a tool and a symbol, a bridge between the material world and the spiritual realm. Its craftsmanship is precise. Smooth curves, defined lobes, and meticulously inscribed inscriptions indicate a society deeply invested in both observation and ritual knowledge. The Etruscans, flourishing in Italy from roughly the 8th to the 3rd century BCE, were known for their sophisticated urban planning, metallurgy, art, and religious traditions. Yet much about them remains obscure because their language is only partially understood, their texts fragmentary, and their culture often overshadowed by the rise of Rome. The liver of Piacenza offers a rare window into this complex world, revealing how divination, astronomy, and civic life were intertwined. How did these people interpret the natural and supernatural, and what role did objects like this liver play in guiding decisions both personal and political? Hepatoscopy, the reading of animal livers, was a practice used to divine the will of the gods. A sacrificial sheep's liver would be inspected for anomalies, color, shape, or markings, and interpreted according to established tradition. The liver of Piacenza, however, is a schematic representation, likely serving as a teaching tool or a reference guide for priests, known as haruspices. Each inscribed name represents a deity associated with a particular region of the liver, suggesting that the Etruscans organized the divine cosmos in a tangible, portable form. But why this emphasis on the liver? Did they see it merely as a vessel of divine messages, or as a symbolic microcosm of the universe itself? And how did the knowledge inscribed upon it influence the lives of ordinary citizens, rulers, or warriors? The liver's discovery in the late 19th century, during excavations near Piacenza, immediately captured attention due to its unusual nature. Unlike inscriptions on tombs or votive offerings, this object combines artistry, ritual function, and practical instruction in a single form. Its precise origins, however, remain uncertain. Was it created as a teaching aid for priests, a ceremonial object to be consulted during sacrifices, or a symbolic token of divine authority? Its portability suggests use in instruction or practice rather than permanent display, yet the craftsmanship indicates reverence and care. Could this model have been carried by traveling priests, used in civic or military contexts, or consulted during critical decisions affecting entire cities? The inscriptions themselves deepen the mystery. Written in Etruscan, a language still only partially understood, they provide a roadmap of divine influence yet leave much open to interpretation. Scholars have identified many of the deities named on the liver, but the precise associations, hierarchies, and ritual meanings remain speculative. Was the liver a codified guide for interpreting divine will, or did it also serve as a mnemonic device for oral teachings? Could certain lobes or markings have represented planetary or celestial influences, linking divination with early forms of astrology? And if so, how sophisticated was this knowledge, and how widely was it disseminated within Etruscan society? The craftsmanship and purpose of the liver also raise questions about the intersection of religion, politics, and power. In a society where divination guided everything from warfare to civic governance, control of ritual knowledge conferred authority. Priests trained in the reading of livers may have wielded influence over kings, magistrates, and generals, shaping decisions through interpretation of the divine. How much of the Etruscan political landscape was structured around ritual, and to what extent did objects like the liver of Piacenza codify and centralize that power? Was the liver itself considered sacred, or merely a practical tool, its sanctity derived from its use and inscriptions rather than its form? Even today, the liver provokes curiosity about lost techniques, lost knowledge, and the mindset of a civilization on the edge of history. The Etruscans' ability to combine observation of the natural world with a symbolic mapping of the divine hints at a sophisticated intellectual and spiritual framework. Yet, the absence of comprehensive written records, combined with the partial decipherment of their language, leaves us only fragments of their worldview. How much of their cosmology, ritual practice, and interpretive system can be reconstructed, and how much will remain forever inaccessible? The Liver of Piacenza also invites broader reflection on the human impulse to seek understanding beyond the immediately visible. Across cultures and epochs, people have sought to interpret signs, map the invisible, and negotiate with forces beyond their control. The Etruscans did so through the liver, while other civilizations used stars, omens, or monumental architecture. What does this say about the universality of human curiosity and the lengths to which societies will go to understand fate, destiny, and divine will? And what, if anything, did the Etruscans themselves believe about the limits of human knowledge and the role of ritual in mediating uncertainty? The liver's survival across 2.5 millennia underscores both the fragility and endurance of cultural knowledge. Buried, lost, and eventually recovered, it connects us to a civilization whose imprint is otherwise faint, whose mysteries are embedded in stone, metal, and ritual. In examining it, one is struck not only by its technical sophistication, but also by the questions it continues to pose about belief, authority, cosmology, and the ways in which a seemingly simple object can encapsulate an entire worldview. Ultimately, the Etruscan liver of Piacenza embodies the tension between what can be known and what remains enigmatic. Its bronze surface and inscribed names provide a tangible link to a people whose civilization has been partially erased by time, yet they offer only a glimpse of the depth of their ritual and intellectual life. Standing before it, whether physically in a museum or mentally through reconstruction, we are invited to ponder the thoughts, fears, and ambitions of a culture that sought to navigate a world both material and divine with extraordinary precision. And so, the liver endures as a testament to the ingenuity and mystery of the Etruscans. What other ritual objects, knowledge systems, or symbolic forms have been lost to time? How many fragments of human thought and spiritual practice wait hidden beneath layers of soil, awaiting rediscovery? And as we contemplate this bronze organ, mapped with gods and divided into sections like a microcosm of divine order, we are reminded that the past is never silent. It speaks in fragments, in forms, and in enigmas that continue to challenge, fascinate, and chill those who seek to understand it. From the ritual precision of the Etruscan liver of Piacenza, which maps divine order onto a tangible bronze form, we now turn our gaze far east to the remote mountains of China's Qinghai province. Here, in the desolate expanse surrounding Mount Baigong, lie objects so strange, so enigmatic, that they have captured the curiosity of scientists, explorers, and armchair researchers alike. These are the Baigong Pipes, a network of iron-rich tubes embedded in rock formations and partially buried in the barren landscape, whispering a mystery that seems to defy conventional explanation. The site itself is stark and austere. Towering peaks surround a series of caverns and nearby a saline lake, its waters tinged with mineral hues. The pipes, some as small as a few centimeters in diameter, others exceeding 20 centimeters, protrude from the mountainside in patterns that suggest intentional placement. They run into the ground, beneath boulders, and in some cases, into the lake itself. On first glance, one might assume they are the work of modern mining or industrial activity. Yet historical surveys, sediment analysis, and local accounts indicate that they predate modern industrialization, possibly by centuries, if not millennia. The Baigong Pipes are composed primarily of iron oxide, with traces of silicon, calcium, and other minerals. Radiocarbon dating of surrounding deposits suggests an age of up to 150,000 years for some formations, though interpretations vary. Some researchers argue that natural processes, mineralization, groundwater erosion, or volcanic activity could explain their formation. Others, however, point to their seemingly organized arrangement, their uniformity, and the way certain pipes interconnect as evidence that something more deliberate may be at work. Could nature, under extreme geological circumstances, produce structures that so closely resemble man-made conduits? Or does the site hint at a lost knowledge, a human or otherwise intelligent intervention far earlier than accepted historical timelines allow? Local legends add another layer to the mystery. The region around Mount Baigong has long been sparsely populated, but the oral histories describe iron tubes and unusual subterranean passages, often tied to spirits or deities that inhabit the mountains. When explorers first investigated in the 20th century, villagers spoke of strange sounds emanating from the pipes, as if the mountains themselves were breathing or communicating. While folklore is not evidence in the scientific sense, it suggests that the phenomenon has long captured human attention, inspiring stories and speculation long before modern instruments arrived to measure their composition and layout. Some of the pipes extend deep into the ground, entering hollow cavities within the rock. These voids have yielded other curious artifacts, including fractured ceramic-like material and small metallic fragments. While some suggest these fragments are naturally formed, others argue that their shapes and placement imply purposeful shaping and deposition. If humans were indeed responsible for creating these networks of tubes, the scale and technical skill required would challenge our understanding of prehistoric engineering. How could a civilization, or group of people, achieve such precise placement of metal conduits without the tools, knowledge, or infrastructure we associate with metallurgy today? Alternative theories have emerged over the decades, ranging from the plausible to the highly speculative. Some geologists maintain that the pipes are fossilized tree roots, mineralized over hundreds of thousands of years, their hollow forms coincidentally tubular. Others suggest they are remnants of volcanic vent activity, where mineral-laden water precipitated iron-rich structures in linear arrays. Fringe hypotheses, popularized in media and internet discourse, posit that the pipes are evidence of extraterrestrial intervention, ancient advanced civilizations, or lost technologies from a prehistoric world. While these theories capture the imagination, they remain speculative, and the lack of corroborating evidence leaves the Baigong Pipes suspended between natural and artificial origins. One particularly intriguing aspect is the way the pipes interact with their environment. Many seem to feed into the nearby saline lake, their ends partially submerged as if channeling fluid or energy. In some cases, pipe openings align along rock fractures, suggesting an awareness of structural features in the landscape. Could these alignments be coincidental, the result of geological processes? Or did their creators possess knowledge of fluid dynamics or structural engineering that has been lost to time? How might their placement relate to ancient human activity, mineral extraction, or ritual practice, if humans were indeed responsible? Scientific study has been limited but growing. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Chinese geologists analyzed fragments of the pipes, noting high concentrations of iron oxide and traces of other metals. Tests indicated that the material was not typical of natural sedimentary deposits, raising questions about the processes that could produce such uniform, durable structures. Some fragments appear welded or fused, as if subjected to intense heat, while others exhibit hollow interiors consistent with piping. Yet despite decades of analysis, no definitive explanation has been universally accepted, leaving the Baigong Pipes in a liminal state, both geological curiosity and archaeological puzzle. The pipe's ambiguity compels reflection on the nature of human inquiry. Are we looking at the remnants of human activity long erased from history, a natural oddity amplified by perception, or perhaps a combination of both? How do we distinguish between artifact and anomaly when the passage of time, erosion, and incomplete records obscure context? The Baigong Pipes force us to confront the limits of knowledge, the assumptions of chronology, and the complexity of interpreting the physical world when multiple explanations remain plausible. Furthermore, the site evokes a profound sense of scale and patience. Unlike monumental architecture or ceremonial objects that speak in human terms, the Baigong Pipes whisper of time measured in tens of thousands of years. They are embedded in rock, partially submerged, sometimes obscured by soil and vegetation. Their silent presence challenges our assumptions about the permanence of human achievement versus geological processes. How many other natural or artificial formations lie hidden in remote regions, waiting to be discovered, studied, and interpreted? And how might their existence reshape our understanding of the capabilities and knowledge of ancient peoples, or even life on Earth itself? As we explore Mount Baigong today, the pipes evoke the same mixture of awe and unease that has accompanied explorers and scientists since their first discovery. The harsh mountain terrain, the echoing caverns, and the fog that frequently rolls down the slopes all contribute to an atmosphere that feels simultaneously terrestrial and uncanny. The pipes are neither grand monuments nor carefully inscribed texts. They are humble, enigmatic conduits, their function and origin uncertain. Yet it is precisely their modest scale combined with inscrutable purpose that makes them compelling, a mystery hidden in plain sight, awaiting patient observation and open-minded inquiry. The Baigong Pipes remind us that mystery often resides at the intersection of the known and the unknown. Scientific methods, radiocarbon dating, and material analysis offer tantalizing clues, but cannot yet provide definitive answers. Geology, archaeology, and folklore intersect here, creating a space where certainty is elusive and imagination is invited to roam. What forces, natural, human, or otherwise, could have produced this network of iron-rich tubes in a landscape so remote? And if humans played a role, what knowledge or technology did they possess that has vanished entirely, leaving only these enigmatic traces? Ultimately, the Baigong Pipes endure as a testament to the persistence of mystery in our world. They are tangible, measurable, and verifiable, yet they defy clear explanation. Embedded in rock and partially submerged in a lake, they occupy a liminal space between natural formation and human intervention, between the remote past and the present. In contemplating them, we are confronted with questions not only about their origin, but about the nature of discovery itself, what it means to encounter the inexplicable, and how much of history and prehistory remains hidden in plain sight, waiting for curiosity, diligence, and imagination to illuminate it. And so, the Baigong Pipes continue to provoke wonder. Are they the remnants of an ancient civilization lost to memory? The byproducts of geological processes operating on immense timescales, or evidence of something altogether more enigmatic? For every fragment uncovered, for every pipe traced into the mountainside or lake, new questions arise, reminding us that the past is never fully closed, and that some mysteries, like the mountains themselves, endure across time, silently guarding their secrets. From the remote, iron-laden mountains of Mount Baigong, where enigmatic pipes rise from rock and water, we turn once more to the sands and waters of Egypt, where another mystery lingers beneath layers of time and civilization. Along the eastern edge of the Nile Delta lies the lost city of Tanis, a settlement that thrived during Egypt's Third Intermediate Period and yet continues to perplex historians, archaeologists, and treasure hunters alike. Unlike the isolated mountains of Qinghai, Tanis occupies fertile lands once crisscrossed by the Nile's shifting channels, a city both strategically important and enigmatically overlooked in antiquity. The city's ruins, partially excavated and partially submerged beneath alluvial soil, present a haunting tableau of human ambition and decay. Colossal statues, temple fragments, and royal tombs emerge from the sand, their surfaces worn by centuries of wind, water, and human activity. Tanis was not a minor settlement. It served as a political and religious center for pharaohs and priests, a hub of trade and worship. Yet its prominence remains eclipsed by more famous sites like Thebes and Memphis. How could such a city, replete with monumental architecture and royal tombs, remain largely hidden from history for centuries? And what secrets lie still buried beneath layers of silt, awaiting patient excavation? Excavations in the 20th century revealed an astonishing array of treasures, many of which rival those of Tutankhamun's tomb. Gold, jewelry, ceremonial furniture, and intricately carved sarcophagi suggest the city was not only a political capital, but also a repository of wealth and artistry. Yet, Tanis is as much a puzzle for archaeologists as it is a repository of splendor. Unlike the well-documented pharaonic capitals, the city's historical records are fragmented, and many artifacts appear to have been relocated, repurposed, or looted in antiquity. How did Tanis manage to accumulate such riches? And why does it leave so many questions unanswered about the nature of its governance, religious practices, and daily life? The geography of Tanis adds to its mystique. The Nile, ever shifting, altered its channels over centuries, sometimes isolating parts of the city or inundating sections with sediment. This natural movement both protected and obscured the city, preserving artifacts while rendering the site difficult to interpret. Satellite imagery and geophysical surveys reveal foundations and buried streets, but much remains hidden. Could there be entire temples, tombs, or archives beneath the delta's soil, their contents preserved yet inaccessible? And what might they tell us about the political intrigues, religious ceremonies, or foreign relations of the city's inhabitants? Perhaps the most famous enigmas of Tanis are its royal tombs. Buried deep beneath sand and clay, some tombs rival the grandeur of the Valley of the Kings. The burial of Pharaoh. Susenes I, discovered in the 1940s, yielded gold coffins, jewelry, and statuary of exquisite craftsmanship, remarkably well preserved due to the waterlogged conditions. Unlike other Egyptian tombs, however, many tombs at Tanis were stripped or disturbed in antiquity, suggesting deliberate looting or ritual relocation. What motivated such intrusion into sacred spaces? Were these acts of conquest, sacrilege, or political maneuvering? And what artifacts, symbols, or inscriptions may remain hidden, waiting to challenge our understanding of Egyptian history? The architecture of Tanis itself hints at both continuity and adaptation. Temples echo the design principles of earlier dynasties, yet feature modifications that respond to local materials, environmental pressures, and shifting political power. Stone quarried from distant regions, reused monuments, and imported artifacts indicate that the city was part of a broader network of trade and cultural exchange. Yet, despite this apparent connectivity, Tanis seems to have faded from prominence more rapidly than its counterparts. Was its decline driven by environmental change, political upheaval, or a subtle erosion of religious authority? And how much of the city's history is lost because records were deliberately destroyed, repurposed, or scattered across other settlements? Equally compelling are the unexplained anomalies associated with Tanis. Certain inscriptions, enigmatic symbols, and unusual burial practices resist straightforward interpretation. Some artifacts, stylistically atypical for the region, have led researchers to speculate on connections with distant lands, Africa, the Levant, or even the Eastern Mediterranean. Were these trade goods, diplomatic gifts, or the remnants of cultural exchange? And if so, what does this suggest about Tanis's role as a cosmopolitan center and the movements of people, ideas, and technology across ancient Egypt and beyond? Tanis also raises questions about preservation and natural concealment. Waterlogged tombs, shifting riverbeds, and accumulated silt have paradoxically protected certain artifacts while erasing the context of others. Unlike the dry, stable conditions of the Valley of the Kings, the delta environment complicates archaeology, leaving only fragmented clues. Could there be treasures or documents that, if uncovered, would rewrite our understanding of the Third Intermediate Period? And might the city's apparent disappearance from historical records reflect not decline, but a deliberate attempt by later dynasties to obscure its significance? Standing amidst the ruins, the scale and ambition of Tanis are both humbling and unsettling. Massive columns lie toppled, intricate hieroglyphs eroded, yet traces of past grandeur endure. The city feels simultaneously alive and silent, a place where human ambition, ritual, and artistry converge and then vanish into sand and water. Archaeologists, historians, and explorers alike are drawn to the site not merely for its material treasures, but for the stories the stones imply and the gaps they reveal in the historical record. How much of Tanis's narrative is still waiting to be unearthed, and what lessons about human civilization, ambition, and vulnerability might it hold? The Lost City challenges us to reconsider the nature of memory and history. Unlike monuments preserved in narrative or temple inscriptions, Tanis exists in partial obscurity, its story mediated through fragments, excavation reports, and occasional spectacular finds. Each artifact recovered, each foundation unearthed, is a dialogue between past and present, a conversation about what was deemed important, what was preserved, and what was lost. And in this dialogue, the city's mysteries endure, prompting questions not only about the 18th or 21st dynasties, but about the mechanisms by which human knowledge, belief, and power persist or vanish over time. Ultimately, Tanis is more than a city of stone and sand. It is a repository of human curiosity, ambition, and enigma. Its tombs, temples, and streets offer glimpses into a civilization that was sophisticated, adaptive, and interconnected, yet whose secrets remain largely concealed. As we trace the foundations of monumental buildings, examine the inscriptions on coffins, and wonder at the treasures that may lie undisturbed beneath centuries of sediment, we are reminded that history often conceals as much as it reveals. What remains hidden in the lost city of Tanis? How many tombs, documents, or artifacts lie buried beneath layers of silt and time, silently guarding their secrets? And as we uncover fragments of this ancient metropolis, piece by piece, are we approaching understanding, or merely touching the surface of a story that stretches far beyond what we can see into the currents of the Nile and the mists of memory?